We call the meeting order at 6 o'clock. Steve, can you take the roll?
Mr. Fischel,
Here.
Mr. Keeney,
Here.
Ms. Brewster,
Here.
Mrs. Grassi,
Here.
Ms. Kunensky.
Here.
Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On behalf of the board, I would like to welcome all students, staff, parents, and interested community members to tonight's Board of Education meeting. I would like to remind everyone that this is a meeting of the Board of Education held in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is time for public comment during the meeting in the public participation section of the agenda. Approval of the minutes. The motion to approve the August 14th minutes as attached. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Can you take the roll, please?
Mrs. Grassi,
Aye.
Mr. Keeney,
Aye.
Mr. Fischel,
Aye.
Ms. Krasinski,
Aye.
and Ms. Brewster.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Motion carried. Special report.
So I have three tonight. They are all somewhat brief. First up is excited Mr. Orlesic. This was on the August agenda, however, we had to push it back due to some conflicts in his schedule. So providing a brief maintenance update for the board as to all of the work that happened over the summers with our maintenance team as well as some of our teachers who assisted them.
I was told to keep it quick, so we did a lot of stuff. Thank you. So I'll go through this real quick. We cleaned custodial and with the help of teachers and aides and other staff members of the district, we cleaned 240 classrooms. Every hallway that you see in the schools that you walk through were scrubbed, sealed, and or waxed. Over 12,000 pieces of furniture were removed from the classroom, cleaned, and then all 12,000 went back in. 160 toilets, 105 sinks, and 90 urinals were also cleaned. And you can see in the picture that Melridge got some painting done. They painted the black and the yellow at Melridge in the gym. The gym floor at Lamouth was refinished, so it looks great. Color looks great. It's laying very well. We seal coated all of our schools and striped all the parking lots. The art room floors at both Parkside and Riverview were painted. Any piece of carpet that you see in classrooms, offices were scrubbed and cleaned. While that was going on, maintenance was rebuilding several classrooms. We serviced all of our equipment, changed over 500 filters, continued to maintain the 85 acres that we have to maintain that is mowable, and we did general PM on our equipment. Additionally, with the assistance of the summer help that we have put together, the gym, 20 yards of mulch were spread at Buckeye. We had numerous classrooms throughout the schools that were shifted and moved. 4 classrooms at Buckeye were painted. They painted the entire hallway and they cleaned the grout in the tile in the hallway walls at Buckeye. It went from gray to white. It looks fantastic. I can't thank them enough. Adult bathrooms at both Parkside and Riverview were painted. Gym balls like at Lamouth were touched up. The toe kicks and the stairwells at Lamouth were all painted black. Looks a lot better than seeing rust and garbage. 3 classrooms at Lamouth were also painted. 4 classrooms at Melridge, they got the shelves and cabinets painted. Doesn't sound like much. Looks fantastic. It brightens the room. Makes it for a nice day for the staff and the students. And additionally, the Melridge modular units received paint on the ceilings and the walls all throughout the summer, and summer is 11 weeks, so by the time the staff and students get out of the building, that leaves us 10 and give us a half a week to get the teachers back in and settled, so that gives us 9.5, and they did a fantastic job. and I'm very, very thankful for all of them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question. Did you have as many staff members participate?
We actually had more.
More?
Yes.
Okay, I wondered if it increased.
We've
All right.
had more.
And
We might have
so
to
no
turn them back.
problem Having enough help?
No.
Okay.
No. Just
All right.
wish we had more time to do more.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Rich.
Thank you.
One other note, the staff that they did put in the HVAC in the board conference room, so it now works and it doesn't sound like a jet engine is taking off.
Oh, good.
That was all done in-house, so something that we're really excited about that they,
They do a great
we
job.
give them challenges, they take them on. So.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, to provide us with a construction update, Roger Riachi is here as well, just to provide the board kind of where we are with our current buildings, projects, as well as I believe Buckeye and where we are with the GMP for Buckeye.
Good evening. So first update on the construction, both buildings are up, both additions to the CT and Riverside. They're enclosed. Temporary protection is installed between the additions and the existing buildings. Most of the work in the existing buildings was completed over the summer, so right now we're just working on the additions themselves. Inside, you can see that the fences are up, so the construction sites are pretty safe. We don't have any issues with traffic on them. Project is still both on schedule and within budget. We have not had any major issues from a construction standpoint that have come up. Just some typical things that we run into existing spaces or outside when we were doing some of the digging. We came across a couple of things, nothing really out of the ordinary or anything to be alarmed of. We're still working with the gas company to install the permanent new line for the high school here. I talked to them last week. They're finalizing the design. They were talking to the county about it, and I'm hoping to hear an install date from them in the next 10 days. So that's as far as the construction updates are concerned. Buckeye, all the architectural, mechanical, and structural drawings are complete. The construction manager is working on the GMP as we speak. They're hoping to have something in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and I will review that with them and then come back to the board. The site drawings are not 100%. We're expecting to be completed by the end of next week, and they're going to start working on that GMP for the site package as well. Hopefully we'll be able to accelerate that and kind of give you one GMP for the entire project. If not, it's going to end up being one GMP for the site package and a separate GMP for the building itself. But we'll know a little bit more once the drawings are finalized and issued by the end of next week for the site. So
Just for everyone, if you could define GMP, we use a
Oh.
lot of acronyms.
the guaranteed maximum price for the project.
You said we would have that in the next 2 to 3 weeks?
For the building itself,
Yeah.
yes. And like I said, once we get the site plans finalized next week, we'll have a little better idea if we can accelerate that and have one number for both. Any questions?
So while we have some good weather, we're doing like sidewalks and driveway, like at Riverview?
We're gonna try and do as much as we can. Some of it was probably gonna end up being in the spring, but we're gonna try and catch as much as the outside work still between now and November, whether it be concrete and or some of the paving as well, or, we're gonna try and get that, as much of it done this fall.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Appreciate
Anything
it.
else? All right,
Okay.
thank you.
And my last, I just saw him walk in, is Mike Purcell. We're going to talk about cops and tans and where we are with that. So that, you can't
Boy,
get much better time.
that's as good as timing as I've had in a long,
Yes.
long time. I apologize. I thought this was starting at 6:30. That is my fault. I do apologize, but I didn't make it right on time. Good evening to the board. I was asked to come today to discuss some of the financing vehicles that we're examining to assist with the payment of the construction program about which was just spoken here. What we're looking to do is structure a multi-tiered hybrid structure that's going to incorporate two types of financing vehicles. One is a certificates of participation, which is an annually appropriated lease revenue transaction. I can get into the complexity of that in a moment. The other portion of that is going to look like a $3 million tax anticipation note. The reason we are examining a hybrid option on this financing is try to keep the interest cost as low as possible, the cost of the financing in terms of the overall repayment levels as low as possible. Without a vote, there are only a few methods by which K through 12 districts are eligible to borrow money, two of which are specifically tax anticipation notes and certificates of participation. The tax anticipation note is a legally allowed financing vehicle that allows a district to issue up to 50% of the revenue generated off a particular permanent improvement levy that comes in as revenue to the district. So whatever that amount that comes into the district, you can cut that by 50%, and you're allowed to apply that 50% margin or ratio to debt service repayment. The other portion of the transaction are certificates of participation. These are a little more complicated. The reason they are allowed by Ohio Revised Code is by law. They are not indebtedness. They are a series of annually appropriated lease payments. And what happens is the issue does come to the board every year for an appropriation on the payment, the lease payment itself. We enter into a contract with it's a structure that's used, it's a special purpose entity. The best way to describe a COPS transaction is a lease sale back. So the district will enter into an arrangement with a special purpose entity and essentially lease back to themselves the improvements that you are financing. It gets complicated. I can get into any more of the specificities if you wish. I certainly field any questions you have on that. It can get into the weeds on the legalese. But the reason we do the hybrid is the COPS have no amount ceiling on them. They're all a matter of financeable viability on behalf of the obligor, the borrower, which would be Riverside Schools. But by leveraging in the use of the tax anticipation notes, it does reduce the debt service by 15%, because the way the investing public looks at the tax anticipation note is a much stronger credit than annually appropriated lease revenues. So that's why we're trying to incorporate both of them to try to come up with the best cost-effective method for the financing. One thing that we're applying and trying to do now is determine on how long to repay these financings. The tax anticipation notes have a maximum maturity of repayment of 10 years. The certificates of participation have a maximum repayment maturity of 30 years. Naturally, both of these maximum repayment maturities tie into the useful life of the asset being financed. And in this case, what we determine this is bricks and mortar. So that generally takes, by law, a useful life of around 40 years. So we're going to be well within that parameter. We are trying to accommodate and see what's going to be the best fit for the district. The one thing we are going to implement on this financing is an aggressive prepayment option, meaning that after 5 years, the district will have an option to either pay off the debt, pay down the debt, restructure the debt, or for that matter, refinance the debt if better interest rates do come about. And then we come in and can refinance that to lower your overall payment, just as you would do so with a home mortgage. But unlike a home mortgage, you only get one bite after 5 years. Once you apply that, either the structure remains the same if you're just buying it down, paying down principal, but if you refinance it, then you can refinance it back to that final maturity that was discussed earlier, or reduce that final maturity, but then you'd have to wait another 5 years to refinance that again. That was a law that was put into change back in 2017. I went on to stop there for a moment and field if any specific questions regarding that.
Mr. Priscilla, can at a later time, should the board decide to do so, could the board pass a bond issue potentially and use those funds to pay the debt of the COPS or the TANs?
Yeah, it's a good question. So when you say issue, to issue a bond issue, not specifically a bond issue, but what you could pass in order to supply an additional revenue stream through which you can pay that debt service would be a permanent improvement levy.
Extended PI.
Exactly, something to that effect. You are not legally bound within the resolutions of the way we structure these issues to specifically utilize one source of money for the repayment. That is going to be up to the district and obviously conducting that, what the viability of those repayment options are. So yes, you could definitely do that to assist in that repayment.
So I have a question. So, right, we cannot pass a bond levy for construction purposes to pay off the COPS or the
No.
TANs. I understand that.
Okay,
That-
sorry, I'm sorry, Linda, I thought that was your question, I apologize to
No,
interject.
like, and I got that, I think I knew that, and that was one of my concerns, and the issue I have with them saying, well, you can go back and pass additional PI levy, those usually have a life of 5 years, which you're not gonna have enough money in 5 years on a PI levy to pay off the substantial amount of dollars that we'll have with COPS. So I think that's an issue for me. I got a lot, so.
Understood. If I may say on the one, you can do a time-bound levy, an extension of a PI, or you could present a continuous PI, which is not time-bound.
I understand that, but I think if we're gonna use it to pay off a lump sum dollar amount, that would be not wise to say, well, then we'll just use that forever for other purposes. That wouldn't be prudent. The useful life of Buckeye, let's face it, we're not extending the useful life. It's already past its prime. The Ohio School Facilities Commission has already said we should have replaced it a long time ago. We've been through that. But we are mortgaging that and saying that, well, gee, that's going to have a useful life of another 30 years. If something were to happen to the old portion of Buckeye and we said that is not going to be usable anymore, that's a portion of the sale leaseback. That's what's being mortgaged. What happens at that point?
Excellent question, excellent question. So if I may dive into that structure a little bit more. So what happens in the sale leaseback structure to which Ms. DeGrassi is mentioning, there will be a lien on the certificate, from the certificate holders through the proxy of the trustee, who the trustee will essentially monitor all the cash flow repayment of the structure. If by any chance the district is unable to pay that debt service, that trustee, by lien and proxy of all the certificate holders, basically the investors in your debt, they do have a legal outlet to come in, and they cannot liquidate that asset, but they can take that asset over and use it to generate revenue in order to get themselves paid. When those particular methods are ever put in place, which it has not happened in Ohio, they don't necessarily come in and try to take that asset away or turn it into something that the district wouldn't want it to be. Their threat is they're going to take away a mission-critical asset away from the school district for a prescribed amount of time. That is obviously going to cripple your education processes during that time frame. So it's the threat of that takeover that you really are trying to avoid.
But I don't think that's what I'm asking. I'm asking, like, in particular, if something happens to the old portion of Buckeye and that building is rendered, quote, useless, right? Even in the case of fire, for example, and you're insuring in case of fire, but if something were to happen to the other, some mechanical problems were to arise and we'd say, we can't use that building anymore, we really have to go back and replace it. What happens to the balance of the lien? Because you've got to pay that, but it's going to then be mortgaged against something that we might not be using. So we're committing to using that facility for another 30 years.
You would be committing to utilizing that facility through the ground lease, which we haven't determined that amount, but let's just call it 30 years,
Call it
which is the
30 years.
maximum. That's fair enough. So if you, the district, were to decide at that point that you wanted to raise that facility for any reason, you would have to get permission from the certificate holders, because that asset is going to be legally pledged under the ground lease to those certificate holders. You will still have to pay the payments on the debt as prescribed once to price the issue, but you could not do anything to that facility without approval.
So if we had to, we would be legally obligated to pay that balance off in full. It's like they're gonna call the loan at that point. No?
No,
Or like,
no.
please explain that to
That's
me.
another good question. They would not call the loan in full. Let's say, for instance, the facility were to be consumed by fire, flood, whatever, an act of God, as they say in the legal or force majeure. Then you would have remedies at that point to either try to rebuild, but you would still be obligated to pay on
Right,
that
and
original
and
debt.
so let me continue along that train of thought. So if we were then to say, wait, hey, we want to build a new elementary school, we could do that, and we could go out and ask the public to vote for a bond levy to construct a new facility, but we'd still then be legally obligated to pay that off, and we can't use the bond proceeds to pay that, right? We would be double indebting ourselves. And so I guess what I'm getting at is we are committing to this facility for another 30 years.
The lien will be on the facility in order to facilitate a marketing preference. The lien itself, when I say the bricks and mortars portion of it, that useful life, they're going to determine that based upon solely the improvement, which, again, is part of the overall structure. Right.
Our agenda only has the COPS approval, not TAN's approval, so I don't know how we wrap all that together. There's no term in here. It's undesignated to cost not to exceed. We don't have a price. Like, there's a lot of open items in this agreement.
Through kind of when we changed CFOs here, a lot of this stuff stalled, and in order to make certain that Mr. Thompson was able to get into his position without this over his head, a lot of that stuff got put back. We can certainly provide all the parameters necessary if you wish not to vote on this tonight. The schedule allows for time. We haven't started anything. We haven't initiated anything. We've got one disclosure that was prepared, and that was even prior to Mr. Thompson's arrival.
Right.
So a lot of that legwork had already been done. What we were hoping to do is exactly this, talk about the structure we are presenting, offering. Your options would be either to do all COPS or a combination of COPS and TANs. That would be the only way to finance this.
Well, right, and so like I said, we have an agenda item on to approve the COPS, but we really haven't had these conversations about how we go ahead and utilize these various vehicles to get us where we want to be. So I think passing and asking for approval is premature. Like, we haven't had those conversations. So let me continue with my questions, because I want to make sure I get them all answered. We have a 3% premium built in here. Is that what I was looking at, a 97% at?
That 97% is the maximum discount rate available under Ohio Revised Code by which the issue can be sold at a discount. So you cannot, that's getting into some bond specificities. So
But it's in here, so I just want to
it
ask.
legally
like,
has to be, yeah. It's more so that is
Is that saying,
protected.
so we can't sell it more than for 3% premium?
You can't sell it at more of a 3% discount. $97 minimum dollar
Okay,
price
so
out of 100.
are these going to be tax exempt?
Tax exempt, yes.
Will we be asking for credit enhancement, because there's a cost to that?
There is a cost to that. That is another player in the sale leaseback structure with the two assets in order to minimize the interest cost on this, and we've done the cost breakdown. Bond insurance will pay for itself on the transaction based on a comparative cash flow analysis, present value cash flow analysis. I would present that all in the investor packet before we were decide to move forward with Mr. Thompson.
Right, I think, I guess I just would I would hope that we would be voting on this when we would have all of this stuff in place, and so that we could have a full picture of what we're looking at. Let me continue. I know we've got Dinsmore, RBC Capital, Cincina, like those fees are all listed that we have to pay those, but there's no cost associated with those. I realize they're dependent on the issue price and how much we issue. And that comes out of the proceeds.
That is correct.
And so it would be prudent for us to know what our GMP is so that we could add all this together, because we really, we really just don't even know how much we're asking for.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, at the time when we would determine what the need for the financing would be, is going to be commensurate with whatever we do come up with through your, I don't know if you have a CMA, CMAR here, or if you're going to have an owner's rep. Whatever that amount is determined, we would put together the package prior to pricing, and again, we would provide all that information to Mr. Thompson as he would disseminate it to the board, and it would have all the costs of issuance listed, and exactly the size of the issue, the repayment levels.
So now I have a question for Dr. Thompson. I think at our finance meeting, I had asked, okay, so we have not talked about options, different types of options that we have for financing this, and I had asked him, not because I'm, levy happy, I just want to know what would we get if we asked for something like, what does 1 mil generate in this district?
Yeah. So in your packets, there is a,
Sorry if I'm skipping ahead.
no, you're not skipping ahead. So what I have, 1 mil currently generates $1,727,000. So for example, if this is, I believe our total is not to exceed 14 million, thereabouts.
That is correct.
Okay, so
That's well above what
if you look at the bond levy calculations that I put together, if you did $14 million bond issue for 35 years, you can do a bond issue longer than a COPS. The interest rate, I did it at 4%, at 5%, guessing what that interest rate would be. We know our revenues, 1 mil is $1.7 million. That would make our annual payment back to debt service at $698,000 at 4%, $768,000 at 5%. So what would the millage be? It'd be approximately at 4%, a 0.4 mil operating levy and a bond issue rather, and 5% it'd be 0.44.
Thank you.
So it's less than half a mil.
Less than half a mil, right? Like, so I don't think that we have talked about that as an option. I know that we have people here who are saying we don't, no new taxes and whatever. I understand that, but we haven't talked about Melridge. We haven't talked about the rest of Buckeye. If this is going to be a project that we move forward with, we haven't talked about the rest of, quote, the projects. And if we're going to do that, wouldn't it be prudent to have that conversation and say, how much would it all cost? And if it could still be less than a mil, and we could close a school. We're not thinking big picture, and I'm really frustrated because we just have not had the conversations. We're not having those conversations, and I think we should be. I mean, it's a half a mil to do this, great, but if we could do it for 3/4 of a mil and get the whole project done, we got to talk about it, and we don't. I don't know what else to say, and I mean, I appreciate all this data that you provide, because you've always been Johnny on it for us, and I appreciate that.
I appreciate that.
What's the risk of not being able to move forward if we hold for all the detail that's missing? Because this is going to have to come back to us anyways, right? So all these blanks at some point need to be filled in.
Understood. The risk is only a matter of what the timing is on behalf of the district. So dependent upon when you want to get into signing contracts for the construction, we will have to be in the process of obtaining the funds. So again, right now we're working contemporaneously along with the board. There's still a good amount of work to be done on the disclosure. So it's not as if we're ready to go. We are not. We still need to fill out the disclosure. We still have to have our discussions with the rating agencies. So with the current proposed schedule has us closing late October. That's pretty aggressive, but that has flexibility.
But
So
what
I'm-
is, what
sorry.
is the rush, technically speaking, with most of these things being fill-in-the-blank type of items once we get all of that work done? And who knows how long the rating agency is gonna take. They could take their time if they choose to. You're gonna run into the holidays, whatever. Construction probably and likely, I'm not a construction expert, but it's not likely that they're gonna start doing things in the winter, so there's really no rush to do that. Interest rates will come down, which will be helpful, like, so there's really no rush to do that. So I keep thinking, why such a fast pace? Why can't we wait and fill in the blanks, get some other information, gather some additional data, try and figure out like bigger picture, long-term project, if we wanted to move forward with some other stuff. My biggest concern again is we won't be able to go back and go to the voter later and ask for a bond levy to pay this off. We're stuck.
Does the COPS and TANs impact our credit rating also? I know there was some discussion about that, but what does that do to our credit rating?
Well, the whole discussion behind really concept of financing the construction versus paying in cash, the downside, paying in cash will certainly affect your credit rating. If you don't leverage some of your internal revenue or borrowing levels, you will get downgraded if you pay this off with cash.
Wait, say that again?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, like, tell me,
So
you lost me.
I want to make certain, I'm working under the assumption that the district is moving forward with the construction program. So I'm just really coming from a factual standpoint. If you have a $12 million bill and you decide you don't want to finance $12 million, that you would rather pull out of your coffers $12 million from your general fund and or your permanent improvement fund, your credit rating will suffer.
Well, your credit rating is going to suffer because you're using cash, but I guess what
Yeah.
she's asking is, how is this going to affect our ability to borrow later if we chose to, and how is it going to affect our?
Financing this would actually enhance your borrowing capacity in the future.
How do you?
Because,
How is that?
again, the opposition being paying in cash.
Well, I understand, but isn't there a limit on what we're allowed to borrow? Because when we were trying to do the high school, we ran up into, like, you can't go past this amount of money because you don't have the ability to borrow that much. Like,
Again,
how does this affect that number?
so the number in terms of going to the ballot, as far as what you're eligible to put on the ballot through a master plan, through the OFCC, is all going to be determined on your assessed value, your taxable value. So when you go for that aspect, let's just talk about that for a moment, what we call a voted piece, an unlimited tax general obligation issue, like we did back in 2016.
16, whatever.
So you are at that point, right off the bat, you are capped off at 9% of your taxable value. And then there are rules that the OFCC will allow you to do per calculation, whether you'd be considered what they call an exceptional need district. And this, or special needs district. This has nothing to do with special education. A special needs district or exceptional needs district is one that is essentially busting at the seams. The OFCC will recognize that you need space. You need additional educational square footage. So then you can become exempt from the ceiling of the 9% on your taxable value. But that's all a voted piece. On a COPS piece, it's all a matter of internal affordability. So at this juncture, $12 million, let's just say that was the price tag for this issue. We would do $9 million in COPS, $3 million in TANs, again, a hybrid to try to effectively keep the interest cost to the issue at its lowest possible price. You are only bound at that juncture on the TANs, like I said before, 50% of the incoming revenue. But on the COPS, you are not bound by size outside of affordability.
So explain that 50% of your incoming revenue on the TANs. What does that mean? Because we looked at, I don't know, a PI forecast for the next, 10 years, whatever, and there's $825,000 sitting in there as repayment, is that just the COPS and not the TANs?
The repayment of the 50% only applies to the TANs.
Okay, but I guess, I don't know, I guess I don't know what that means.
So
50% of what? Like, what do you mean?
Mr. Thompson, the incoming permanent improvement levy, how much does that generate for the district?
2.7.
2.7?
7 million a year.
Oh, 2
Less
points.
investment.
Okay, so that you would be eligible to apply $1.35 million annually toward debt service to pay for a project under the tax anticipation note ordinance in the Ohio Revised Code. So if you're bringing in 2.7, you're eligible to pay 1.35 annually in debt service.
Okay, so I want to know, again, our PI forecast says 825 or 850, whatever the number was, 8 something. But I only saw like so many years. Is that going to drop off, or is that 825 is our COPS payment, and then we're adding TANs on top of it?
That's right.
Whoa. So
That's not in the PI
there's
forecast?
so that's not in the forecast for our PI fund. Like, what's that look like?
I'm sorry, the COPS?
The TANs.
The TANs is only going to be a $3 million issuance
Well, I get it, but $3 million over
over 10
10 years is another 300,000
plus the interest on that. So you're talking about a payment in that
350.
around 325 to 350, correct?
So in addition to the 825 that's on, right, so that's not on there, and so I want to be clear that that's not on there. So that's putting us into deficit spending in that fund.
Again,
I want to be clear, that's not in there.
the objective here is comparing the ability to do the project,
Yeah.
either paying in cash.
I totally
Okay,
understand,
okay.
totally understand. I'm just trying to figure out, like, if that's gonna be the plan and the COPS is what we have in the PI fund forecast. The PI fund forecast is only accounting for the COPS, there's no TANs in there, and if that's the case, there's negative numbers, like that, obviously. Like, I was looking at it last night, and
The general fund would be the outlet for the repayment on.
well, right, if we can't afford it in the PI fund, right.
Right. Well, again, you are not technically,
I think what's been sold to the public is that we're gonna pay for it out of the PI fund. Let's be clear, everybody's got that. You've heard it 1,000 times. We're gonna pay for it out of the PI fund, no new taxes. Okay, fine. But if that's 825 is the COPS and the TANs are not on there, the tax anticipation notes are not on there, that's another $325,000 to $350,000 for the next 10 years that's not on that forecast. It's not on the forecast. I need to make sure people heard what I just said. It's not on the forecast.
well, again, I'm coming in from it purely.
I get it.
Okay.
I understand. This is
Okay,
not a you
okay,
thing. I'm
okay,
just saying,
good.
like-
I'm not trying to pass the buck by any means.
Trust me,
I
it's
just
not.
want, it's a matter of, if you are going to pay for this, if you are going to move forward with the construction program, paying it in cash right now would be very detrimental.
Well, right, I understand all that, like, we can't do that. I just want to know when people are looking at the paperwork that we get, that's not on there, I want to make sure people understand that that's not the full amount of the debt, and that if we can't make decisions based on information that's not there, it will throw us into negative, and if we're going to do that, then we've got to think of something different. And if we're going to think of something different, then shoot, let's continue to work along the lines of expanding the plan, getting rid of Melrose, like doing all those things that we should be talking about, and perhaps going for levy. I'm not saying that, again, people will be out there saying, oh, Gracia, she's levy happy. I'm not levy happy. I'm just saying we've got to talk about options, and we don't do that.
Understood.
So I appreciate all this
Sure.
data that you provide, because you are always a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, I really just want, I come at it from a standpoint, a particular district client in this matter says, I am constructing something for this much money. We are,
Right.
and so
And,
that-
and the board hasn't had that conversation, and so the board wasn't directing that, right? You were like working with an individual to provide that information, but the board hasn't had those conversations. So again, I feel like it's premature
certainly.
The caps for new construction, I understand, is 30 years
Maximum.
maximum. We were saying up to, I believe it's 12 in caps we're gonna pull, correct?
That was right, the maximum,
Well,
the
I'm
whole,
sorry, 10.
10, the whole, the way
The
we were.
whole was 14.
Correct.
Yeah.
Not to exceed, but what we were basically looking at is 9 cops, 3 TAMs.
Okay.
Rough.
If the new building doesn't come in, the GMP for that comes under 9. The other money would hopefully go to renew and redo the existing structure and renovate that.
As long as we pass the resolution which has that type of flexibility within that facility, correct?
Is that then 30 years, or are we saying because it's an existing building, it's less? Is it become flexible that way?
The repayment on the caps, for instance,
Or are we just leveraging the whole new building and saying, hey, if we don't pay this, you're just taking the new stuff and we get the old
the new
stuff?
building will be leveraged within the ground lease as not only part of the lease payments, but part of the
Okay.
enhancement as well. If you were to have come to me and said, we need to buy $10 million worth of computers, your bond counsel will not allow you to borrow for 30 years on that. The useful life of a computer, at least in my house, is about 3 hours, but by law, it's, a handful of years. If you're gonna do general improvements to that facility outside the additional new renovation, and as long as those renovations are infrastructure, bricks and mortar, that's not gonna be a problem.
I mean, even so systems, for instance. I mean, they don't make them like they used to.
Sure.
So a boiler you're getting 30 years out of a boiler now. I mean, that obviously is going to be part of the lease. I guess is that a part of this where I think we've taken out other loans for lights under energy savings.
Sure.
I think we're still paying for them and the buildings don't exist.
HB 264.
So I think those, and the other question I have, and I was at a legal update again this morning, and there's another kind of things going around. All of these stuff, the COPS I understand is a lease back that we're paying back, but we're using property tax to pay it back with. I understand that there are all the property tax issues that are, that they're questioning about property tax and are we going to eliminate property tax or what. There's a couple bills out there that say we're getting rid of property tax, but for property taxes that are designed under like bond programs. Those will keep until you pay it back. Would COPS qualify for that? Do we not know? Is that something that's going to be determined down the road?
You're not asking for a bond.
We're in a whole
I
new.
know it,
All
but if that's the revenue we're going to use to pay it back.
Understood. Well, I mean, the district survives obviously on property taxes.
Absolutely.
So the main concern
I don't
of
want to get into debating that.
Oh, by all
property
means,
tax
that's
issue. I'm
certainly-
trying to avoid that
by all
tonight.
means,
Because we'd like to get home before midnight. But I do think that's a question to kind of,
sure.
would it be seen as, a debt that we have to pay back, or because it's a lease back payment, does it fall under something different? And would we need a legal opinion on that before moving forward? I don't even know if that would even work. So
The infrastructure here, the way this particular district works with its property taxes, this method is not really what's going to be under the microscope for the General Assembly. The General Assembly is focusing on primarily limiting what you can take from 1 year's carryover to the next. They're going to try to cap that. They're also now looking primarily in the focus is inside millage.
well, there's also the one, so of the third one though, is the continuous levies.
The continu-
RPI is continuous, and we're assuming that that's going to continue on, and we're leveraging that for 30 years.
The continuous
Does that
levy,
limit-
as they are proposing, what they're concerned about with the continuous levy are replacement levies.
Okay.
So what they're trying to determine is the way emergency levies are passed, and at one point were allowed in the state, you still are until the General Assembly says otherwise, you can come in and do a replacement levy. So in your normal operating levies, you were to pass on day one, let's just say for instance, that levy generated $5 million for the district. What happens there is that amount stays stagnant all through the course of that levy. What gets rolled back is the effective millage let's say that $5 million was at 5 mils,
Yeah.
maybe 4.5 mils, you're just under 2 billion in AV. That effective millage starts to get rolled back.
Yeah, 920.
Okay, so now what they're saying is there was a new method put in place where you do a replacement levy that allows that renewal of that levy if it was time bound, but when new construction comes in on the duplicate, the district would be capturing that. That is not the nature of your basic operating levy. Many districts implemented that. I'm working with several right now that, yes, they are worried about that very concern. You don't have that here.
Okay.
You don't have the replacement aspect of the emergency levy that's going to capture that new growth.
The one that I'm really concerned about, the one, because it's being described to me a little bit different, and I think we need some clarification, is it does, after, I think it's after the next 10 years, they're looking to sunset all of these continuous levies so that they are continuing to be voted on. You know, do you still want to do this to the people? If we are indebting ourselves, does that put us at risk? And obviously, I think it might with everything that's out there.
Without a doubt.
But does it make the bonds less attractive?
No.
Okay.
As of right now, and it's a very good point you bring up. I was just on the phone with Moody's today on 2 other transactions, and this was the very point of my discussion. Right now, as far as the legislature is concerned, and the credit rating applied to these bonds, and as far as the marketing of these bonds, none of that material has taken place yet through the assembly. So they're not going to hold that against you. There are so many different comments coming out about grandfathering in. If you have particular revenue established that needs to pay off debt, the state's going to allow that to grandfather in. There's been so much, and as I'm certain you've seen come across your desk, so much different discussion. If you were to be forced to go to a time-bound levy on your existing permanent improvement, that puts the pressure on you as far as getting it renewed, as that is going to be a revenue stream. Moody's could ask that question now, but they could not hold that against you until that is passed into the Ohio Revised Code or the Biennium Assembly's objective.
But the benefit of a bond levy, though, is that you're collecting until the bonds are paid without having to ask for renewal. So it's guaranteed, whereas at any given point in time, the residents of your community could just say, too bad, I don't want to pass a replacement or, renewal, whatever, and now you're out of luck, right? Now you have no levy, and you have these dollars that you have to repay, and now you're going to be borrowing out of the general fund. I guess it's a lot for a COPS issue, at least from my perspective, when we're looking at what we have in our PI
Sure.
fund. It's a substantial chunk of it, asking for 30% plus a TAN of our PI fund is a lot.
I gotcha.
It's a lot when you look at our buildings. And then, I want to ask about, and I know this is silly because we're never going to get our money, but under the ELP program, we still have, I think, $11 million sitting out there from the first construction project that we did that they owe us some 50,000 years in the future, right? Like we all know that maybe that'll happen and maybe it won't. But if we decided to use bond financing and say, well, then let's just do this as a project and use that, we could actually get something out of it, maybe, right? We could get credit for it at least.
To a certain extent.
To a certain extent.
Right.
So if we're going to do a 14 or 15 or even if it's $20 million, by the time you're done with it, a $20 million project is going to generate you another 9%, $2 million, right? Like that's not something to not consider.
I understand the rationale there.
Right, even though it's way down in the future and that our number may never come up.
Right.
We haven't seen the 11 yet, so I'm not
Right.
holding my breath.
Right.
We said that way back in 16,
Yeah.
so.
The expedited local partnership program from the state of Ohio, especially now there's been a new regime that's come in and taken over OFCC. They have a predominantly almost brand new administration. And from what I'm hearing from the legal side of things, it's chaos. It's difficult to get any idea, even if you're CFAP 3318 and you are in line for cash right now, it's a quagmire. They were telling districts at one point, we don't have the money. Districts structure an issue, they go out, they get approved. OFCC comes back and says, oh, by the way, we do have your money now. And they have to revamp everything that happened at Shaker Heights. So yeah, there's ELPP money out there. I'm just gonna be honest with you, I've always told clients, just as you know, the caveat, you just can't depend.
Right, but I mean, if we're gonna think of a large project,
Understood.
you might, I
Understood.
mean, it's not, it's
It's out there.
out there,
No doubt.
and it's free money, and it's sitting out there, and you might as well take advantage
And
of
you-
at least getting in the loop for the dollars, if your number ever does come up. We'll
You
probably all be-
enrolled in the program.
We'll all be dead by then, but like, whatever. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
I hear you.
It's,
I understand.
it's a consideration, again, something we haven't talked about at all.
Is there, so, I again, bond financing, not my strength nearly at all. And I am the
I love
eternal
it.
optimist. That's another weakness. But say we get these numbers back and we get a great GMP and then comes back that we can redo the entire inside of the building, Buckeye, for 15 million. Everything's done, all buttoned up. We said for 14. Is there like a rule of thumb that, I know when you buy a car, like every $1,000 is $7 to your payment or something. Is there a rule of thumb in this bond game where every $1 million is how much more annually?
It's all going to be based upon the
So no?
no.
Okay.
I can't give you that rule of thumb. If I knew a static repayment interest rate, yeah, I could
Okay.
give you that all day long. But by the time I walk from there to here,
Uh-huh.
that probably changed 10 times.
Right.
So that's why it would be difficult to be able to give you that type of, like today in the bond market, wasn't such a good day.
Plus, you're doing staggered sales too, right? Like, I mean, you're not selling them all at one price.
No, these are going to be serialized pieces, correct. Right, they will, each piece will have an individual coupon, yield, and maturity amount associated with it. On the longer piece, the cops will serialize that 1 year after another, probably for 15 years. Then at the outskirts, what we call the back end of the yield curve, because it's rather flat, investors ask you to bunch those up in what we call term bonds. So we'll aggregate 2 or 3 years worth of payments into one singular payment. Now, term bonds are not that great for the district because serializing every piece of the debt takes advantage of the entire yield curve. But when you sell, you are at the mercy of what investors want. And that's what my role would be with the underwriter, is to make certain that we structure that, again, to the bottom dollar benefit of Riverside Schools.
And how will Moody's look at our rating? Because I know we'll go back to them and ask them for.
We will have to get
Like,
this
are we
right.
going to even ask them for an enhancement? Are they going to enhance? Like, what's your thought on that? Considering our 5-year forecast isn't looking so hot either.
There are credit considerations to be had here. The concept, again, where I kind of did it in a black and white, and I understand I'm beating a dead horse here, is financing. The assumption is you're moving forward with the construction program. So that's why I say to you, without a doubt, you need to leverage money to do that. Otherwise, Moody's isn't going to worry about enhancements. They don't provide that. They're simply going to provide the guideline to the investor by giving you that letter grade. You were upgraded. When we did the original issue back in 2016, you were an A1 credit. I worked at length with Moody's, Karen Liu. They do an annual surveillance. My job doesn't end at a transaction. I am not on retainer, but I keep all my clients' information, so when Moody's or Standard & Poor's calls, they come to me. And then I can tell them, these are the things I want you to look at about this district. And then we get a call together, what they call surveillance. And at that time, we had the call with Mr. Thompson's predecessor. We went through what was going on at the district, and we were bumped from A1 to AA3, which in Ohio is getting to an elite rating. The majority of Ohio districts are in the single A credit category. So the becoming AA, believe it or not, as good as it is for the district, it does shine the spotlight on you a little bit more. Once you get to those elite levels, they want to make certain you're maintaining those levels that got you there. So in this particular segment, and I can, again, if need be, I can provide the breakdown. We put all the parameters of the finances, the spread, the balance sheet of Riverside Schools into a basic matrix that Moody's provides to us, what they call their scorecard. And in their scorecard, they will tell you specifically, based upon your rating, we weight certain aspects of your balance sheet higher than other aspects. Naturally, your carryover balance is weighted tremendously. Your ability to pass ongoing operation levies is weighted rather heavily. Your ongoing OPEB or your retirements, it's difficult. It's silly, but they weigh that very heavily. Your benefits obligation, which here, that's where you get, all districts in Ohio get pulled down by that. But I examined what it would be to take away $12 million from your coffers, and I applied that into the matrix versus borrowing what you see in front of you today in proposition, and there's no doubt the weight of your carryover balancing being reduced by that $12 million has a significant toll on the credit rating of the district. The rule of thumb for Moody's is they want you to carry over approximately 20 to 25%. I apologize having my back turned to you over here. 20 to 25% of your incoming budgeted revenues you should be carrying over year. At the AA credit rating, that's a minimum standard. You dip below that 20%, it's not a trigger. It doesn't happen, oh, boom, you're downgraded. There are mitigating circumstances to every situation with every school district in Ohio. We're able to talk, hey, we had this and this and this one time, that's gone away, stuff like that. But here, my concern would be paying $12 million in cash, if that was the price tag for the construction, versus leveraging that via financing. Your credit rating will certainly take more of a hit paying it for cash. But we are talking with Build America Mutual to enhance the COPS. That would be the bond insurance.
What does that cost us?
So on the COPS, for if we were to do a $9 million COPS, it's probably going to be in the realm of 25 to 30 basis points on the total debt service. So that is, a basis point is 0.01%. So 100% is 100 basis points. So in my world, 35 basis points would be $3.50 per thousand on the debt. 9 million, talk $16 million in total debt service, $3.50. It'll be between $27,000 and $30,000. Which again goes into the issue, it's financed through the issue. All the cost of issuances go into the issue, so there isn't a bill at the end for the district to pay debt service plus cost of issuance. All that's incorporated just like your real estate taxes in your mortgage. Very similar method.
Mike, is there room in our indebtedness level to do 14 million in COPS? And I understand the fear of the COPS and what that means, and especially since we can't pass a bond issue to pay it off. But, and this might be a Dan question too, but potentially if we went out, the district went out for, you know, some type of levy to generate revenue for the general fund, a 1 mil of that or a half mil of that or whatever could be dedicated to repaying the general fund for the one lump payment to get out of the COPS issuance. Is that fair? Is that reasonable?
So certainly, if you were to go out and ask for that half mil levy, let's just say, that's going to generate, like you said, around $800,000, $900,000 in annual revenue. So you would have to accumulate those funds over a few years in order at that any given point to.
It would take you a period of time to pay that back,
Good,
but
yes.
theoretically,
Yeah, absolutely.
you could be. That's about the only way, but there's no way to lump sum pay that off unless you just pull it all out of general fund.
General fund, unless you have those monies available to you. Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
understood.
It's an interesting.
Is there room for a higher COPS issuance and no TANs?
Oh, we could do this all COPS.
Okay.
If you had to do this all cops, you could do it in that fashion. My objective here was to get you the most cost effective. The TAN's at $3 million, essentially 33% of the overall financing at a lower interest rate, definitely gets you a lower debt
How
service.
much lower?
I'm sorry, I don't have the.
Is it significant?
It was significant. It was
What is that mean?
probably close to $100,000 a year.
And also your bond rating.
And the bond rating itself. To carry on more of a.
You can't separate that bond rating, 'cause the
Right.
bond rating would suffer without that.
If you were to do all cops, that's definitely going to weigh much more significantly against your bond rating than if you were to incorporate the TANs. For instance, Mr. Thompson, if we were to go into Moody's and say we are going to do a $14 million cops issue, I could guarantee you one of the questions they would say is, we see that you do have an incoming permanent improvement revenue stream. Is there any ability to leverage that? They themselves want you to borrow at the most effective level. So that was the only reason I incorporated that hybrid. But your question is exactly correct. If you wanted to do it all cops, you could do so.
On the flip side, could you do more TANs, or are we maxed at 3 mil on the TANs? The TANs seems to be.
You said
50% of the incoming revenue. So we could leverage more out of the TANs if we wanted to.
You couldn't have payment exceed half of RPI.
That is correct.
1.35 million.
That is correct.
But that payment, okay, so that
Combined.
combined, it is combined. So I was under the assumption the 825 or 50,
825.
25,000 was all in, and was cops and TANs combined.
So let me interject
maybe
here,
I'll sort of-
because I know that you were running numbers and adding 300,000, it's all in.
That's what I thought, okay.
It's a global number, includes the cops and the TAN, it's 825 a year.
I
And
apologize,
we're not going to an additional
Yeah,
300,000.
I don't have the numbers in front of me. and I
Yeah,
understand that.
if you run numbers at 4%, you're gonna have 9 million on the payback. If it's a 25-year, you're probably gonna be about $570,000 a year, and then the other will be the remaining. So we have to look at the numbers, and what it all comes down to is how much we're borrowing, okay?
Right.
Now, what Mr. Purcell has to give us is a range, okay? He can't be so narrow that he can't go to Chicago and work with something. He's got to have a range he can work with. It's all going to come down to the interest rate at the time.
Right.
And what we believe we know is the $825,000 is going to give us, plus or minus, depending on what the rate is, $12.5 million. It's not going to be 14, 15, or 16. It's going to be about 12.5.
We only generate that not to exceed number above what is needed to provide any type of cushion in the event something were to happen. We certainly never try to utilize that. But if you put it right on a number that still has a variability to it, you may put yourself in a corner. And the interest rates would have allowed me to have borrowed more at that budget, and now I've capped myself there. So that's the only reason we
So
put
back to my
that.
optimist had 12.5 million. Can we get more TANs if it was like only another million to finish the building? Like, could we go back and get another million? In
You're going to
TANs?
put stress on the payment structure,
I mean, but
because you're going to be paying more up front.
is
The
it?
TANs are only going for 10 years. That's the
Right.
issue. So
Okay.
when you
Well,
syncopate the repayment, obviously the debt service is going to go up.
Yeah, so let me just add, just like if you're getting a mortgage,
Mm-hmm.
if you have a 30-year and you go to a 20-year, you're going to pay more.
You're going to pay more.
Yeah.
And the objective is you can try to go from a 30 to 20 in an interest rate environment that would allow your payment to remain the same as it was when you were at 30 years. But now you've reduced your overall payment by 10 years. So yes, we will work within the range and the budgetary constraints of the district's balance sheet in order to achieve that. If we can achieve more within that budget constraint because rates have worked to our favor, I can tell you right now, since we started talking about this on high level amounts, the market has definitely worked in our favor. So I could tell you that where maybe before we were probably looking at that budget capping us maybe between 11 and 12, now the 12.5 is within that budget constraint.
But also recently, we went from 399 to 417.
Right.
Okay, so it's bouncing around.
Yeah, and today was not a good day. There was some job markets data that came out. But just to put it in perspective, just over a month ago, the 10-year Treasury, which is generally the index, it's a taxable index by which we maintain a benchmark standard of what overall interest rates are doing in the market. So though that's not a tax exempt rate, its ebbs and flows mirror the same as tax exempt rates. That rate was pushing 4.7% at one point in late July. So it has come down tremendously. Rates in general have come down. I'm certain you all saw it as well as the FOMC did decide to do a 25 basis point cut to the overnight Fed funds rate. That's the rate at which banks lend each other money overnight for the collateralization requirements. And it is presumed that there will be 2 more cuts this year, one of which could potentially be what they call a jumbo cut, which is 50 basis points or 0.5%.
So cops and TANs, we're front loading our payments.
The TANs will
Like
be
the 10-year,
front loaded,
right, it's gonna be a 10-year larger
And then we'll
payment,
wrap
and
the
then we're
cops.
gonna wrap it down lower.
That is
But
correct.
if we're looking at the 10 years of the PI forecast, the number's actually gonna be a little bit bigger on the front end and lower on the back end.
I'll try to
Right,
structure
like-
this so this number that you'll repay will be equal every year. But naturally, the way it would look is the cops are gonna compromise the front end of that, or rather the TANs, I apologize. And then the cops, like you said, would wrap around that, but I'll do it in a manner so that each year has a similar repayment level, what we call level debt.
So we'll sell more on the back end.
If the back end would be the $9 million in the cops, correct?
So I'm just gonna throw this out here because, again, I feel like we haven't had these conversations, and maybe it would be prudent for us to like take a step back and have some work session that says, why are we limiting ourselves to this portion of this project if we should be doing the whole thing, and what would that really cost us? And then having conversation about how we finance it. We literally should have conversation about how we finance it. If we have under 1 mil to be able to pay back an entire building, I don't know why we're not having that conversation instead of let's hurry up and put on 8 classrooms. I don't know why we're not having that conversation. Like, right, I'm trying to collaborate here and say maybe we should be thinking bigger picture, and we're not doing that.
Well, we've been working on this, Ms. Grassi, for almost a year.
I
This is the first time you
understand
brought
that.
that up.
doesn't, but because,
So we've been working on this for almost a year.
does that mean we
That's
should?
the first time you've brought this up.
So should we like just?
So we can talk about it, okay?
I think we should.
But now is the time to talk about it in this meeting, because we're starting to
Well,
move
we
forward
are
here.
talking about it.
Mr. Purcell has spent, Mike, do you remember, was it about 6 or 8 months ago you gave your first presentation on this?
It's been close to a year ago.
Almost a year, this person came in here and gave us a presentation on this very information. Okay, that's almost 1 year. All right, so if you wanted to talk about other options, certainly we could talk about and discuss anything, but you don't do it at the last second and say,
Well, I
let's
think we
delay.
should.
This is just a delay.
No, it's not a delay. It's a big picture question.
So there's been a lot of time and effort put in by this professional right here to give these numbers so that they're reliable. And we have done a lot of work, and we know pretty much what the numbers are, okay? And I'll add this. The new building, okay, is an addition. It's an 8 classroom addition, and the other new building is a gymnasium, okay? For rough numbers, you're gonna be looking at about $7 million. And so the remainder of the money, whatever we can get based on what the interest rate is when they go to Chicago, then the rest of that money is gonna be used for renovations. We're not building new buildings with that money. We're bringing 20 years of neglected buildings back up to par.
But we
Okay?
don't know what
So
that will cost.
we need to do this, and we need to renovate our buildings so that they have a longer lifespan, not with the idea of, oh, they're old, we need to throw them away. No, you don't do that. You take care of what you have. You improve what you have. Let me add that you have Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Rutgers, Oxford, Cambridge. You have 400-year-old buildings that they have maintained and renovated, okay? So we can maintain and renovate this building.
And I don't think I'm saying that we shouldn't. I'm saying then let's have the conversation about what it would cost, and let's get some actual real costs. Let's get some costs. Let's have that conversation. Let's have contracted with our architects to actually come up with a plan. What does that cost? Not, well, when we're done, we'll see how much we can do with whatever's left over. Just give me the whole cost.
Ms. Grassi, we've been doing that work for the last 6 to 8 months.
So where's the whole cost?
Okay?
We don't have
And-
cost.
And I don't know if you understand, when you go to
understand a
do
lot of this.
renovations and you have, let's say, $10 million worth of work to do, and you have $6 million to do that work, you're going to take that $6 million as far as it goes. And it's impossible to have an exact cost when you're tearing out walls and ceilings, okay, and renovating, because you don't even know what you're going to run into. You have a general idea. Mr. Keeney, how much was it? Do you remember how much it was a square foot when you were talking the renovation?
Renovation generally runs 200 to 250 square foot.
Okay, so there you go. You take the building, you go by 200 to 250, and you know what your cost is. You don't know what you're going to run into. Heck, even in these projects we're doing right now, you run into asbestos. You run into a gas pipe that needs changed. You run into a water line you run into a 10-inch that needs to be changed to a 15-inch, right, Rich? Over at Buckeye. You don't know what you're going to run into sometimes until you get into the walls, you get into the ground. So the numbers are going to change. Okay, you can't have an exact number. That's unrealistic.
We haven't asked our architects to provide that. So we haven't done that.
Okay, I wanted to bring up a point about the recent reappraisal. I know in my situation, I'm paying $1,100 more a year. Right now, the property tax challenge, I think, has a lot to do with people being upset about how much it's costing them in additional taxes, and they're looking for remedies. Certainly, we need taxes, but, you know, right now to ask, we did receive, correct me if I'm wrong, $3.8 million in new tax money.
Yeah, you're getting very complicated here, but yeah, when I'm going to try to talk about some of that
Yeah.
stuff when I do the 5-year forecast, but what you're referencing is the 20 mil floor.
Mm-hmm.
So what that means is no school district under current law, check that, current law, cannot drop below 20 mils in collections and effective millage. And we're sitting at the 20 mil floor. So there was a increase for Riverside schools, which was very beneficial. However, the legislature has been working, and Mr. Priscilla, you might even be able to speak to that as well, of eliminating the floor or doing things to how we calculate the levy and what is considered against the floor and what isn't going against the floor. So I don't know where that's going to stand. In my 30 years of doing this, this is the most unpredictable time that I can recall from a financial perspective.
I would agree with you wholeheartedly.
Right.
Right, and then you have the lawsuits that'll follow, and it'll take years to get through the Supreme Court.
The one main aspect of the elimination of the 20 mil floor, that's the eradication of the inside millage, is that constitutionally would put a massive amount of debt here in Ohio in technical default. Inside millage is utilized by not only school districts, but that is the method of funding that is pledged by multiple municipalities for their EMS, fire, and safety. So that's all been embedded in legislation when they went and decided to either borrow on that stuff or say, I'm going to build this facility, or I'm going to pledge these funds to finance or fund this facility. If the legislature were to eliminate that, that is going to be deemed unconstitutional right off the bat. That's when the legislature took a step back and the assembly realized that they were biting off a lot more than they could chew. I am working with the district right now who's looking at multiple athletic wellness facility improvements. Their entire balance sheet is generally predicated on inside millage. They are at the 20 mil floor, and they're about to borrow $30 million for the repayment in order to finance this. At any given time, any district throughout my 30 years in the industry as well anytime a district goes to borrow money, you're putting the district at risk. This legislature is unique and they are not predictable. As Moody's has told me, because we are concerned about their treatment given this new, until it's passed, it's the way it is. So you always have a risk no matter what. Anytime a district borrows, there's always going to be legislative risk, financial risk, economic risk if things fall out. But generally when those risks start to manifest, it's not going to be something that's so local only to Riverside schools. You're talking about more of an epidemic financial situation like the Great Recession of 2008. And it's been difficult, and I can only imagine in Mr. Thompson's case, along with a lot of his peers in the industry, a lot of my clients made financial moves in order to honor what they thought were going to be the basic new laws, which have been really, honestly, they have stepped back dramatically from what they were originally proposing. And I had a lot of clients shift around money in order to accommodate what they thought was going to be the new way. And now that new way has definitely taken a bit of a left turn. Where it lands, more and more I'm hearing, just out of, because I'm in tune with it with my other client, where I'm, not to sound cliche, but our fingers are on the pulse of it. The committee's supposed to generate a proposal by the end of this month, and I've heard that for the most part right now, from what we're hearing, that the 20 mil floor is going to remain. There may be down the line legislation or a biennium that takes it to 18. They're going to try to limit how much your taxable values can increase in a year, and they're going to put a limit on carryover balances, but I've heard it's going to be more of a ratio level than a specific percentage you can't, or amount. You simply can't hoard this much money. It is all up in the air at this juncture. But in that regard, though, what is being proposed on the legislative side wouldn't have a direct impact here the way the balance sheet is structured at Riverside. We're not depending upon inside millage to fund this. We're not depending upon a replacement levy moving forward, that captures new growth. So not to say that any district at this juncture is immune to what the new assembly rules will be, but as far as Riverside goes in that regard, they are not the prototypical district to which they are referring when it comes to a lot of these new protocols that they're trying to implement.
I don't know if you know the answer to this or not, I just thought of it, but you seem to be very knowledgeable on property tax. It's a question that I've had kind of running around. So TIFs and REDs have been a big they've come up a lot. And obviously they tax what are expected property taxes. Eventually we get paid back. If they were to reduce the 20 mil floor, do something to property taxes, what happens with TIFs and REDs? And how does that impact us as an entity, whether we're getting the payment back or do we just not see it?
The TIFs themselves, just so you know, I'm working in conjunction with the city of Painesville on the TIF that had been implemented here with Riverside Schools, and we're auditing the revenue. We do think there are some funds that are owed to the district. We're certainly working through that now, and I'm going to have a memorandum of understanding about that. I'm working closely with their finance director and their city manager. On the TIF side of things, if I may indulge me for 2 minutes to explain that, on the TIF, what happens is a developer comes in and says, you have this plot of land over here, no one's on it. There's a basic real estate tax that is paid to the district, but there's no development on it. Developer will come in and say, what we would like to do is establish at what level the value of this land is. We're going to build something on this land, development, whatever it may be, office space, much like the Heisley Road developments on Route 44. Then they're going to say, from where we started up until the day this is all done, at that new amount, instead of all that new property tax going to the district, we're going to take those payments in lieu of taxes, pilot payments, those extra property tax, that's going to go to help those who finance the development on there. We talked about this, the TIF that's going on in Concord Township. Is that correct? Painesville Township, I apologize. So what happens there then is obviously, the district's not going to sit there and say, well, you're taking money out of my pocket. There are negotiations that are set forth that said, so instead of us paying what these extra taxes would have been, we're going to pay you what you were getting. We're going to give you a little bit on the top until that asset comes to realization. And then the district comes into a situation where a plot of land was generating minimal property value. Now it's generating property taxes because there's a development on it. Those will not be affected. Those are going to be TIF'd at the rates according to everything that Mr. Thompson puts in annually with his tax certificates, what he collects on those properties. Once the TIF agreements expire, then that property goes on the duplicate. But those minimum service payments or any agreements you may get into with those developers on those TIFs, those have to be adhered. That's law.
So the amendment to remove property taxes is gonna have a lot of red ink then,
Oh.
and buts and all this, so all of a sudden, hey, my property taxes are gone, but they're not, because of all the other structures that you may not even know that are there.
Totally. The concept of eliminating property taxes in total, I think, as some type of legislative panacea for the assembly, I mean, yeah, the entire state's educational system is predicated on that. To eliminate that, we are talking about a major overhaul to how taxes are going to be collected, what's going to go to where. They're either going to replace it with an income tax, a statewide sales tax. That implementation is going to be years in development, years in development. I can answer any further questions anyone may have. Property taxes are my livelihood, so everything I do is based on property taxes for the last 30 years. I'd just like to take this moment. I understand the board has more discussion and consideration to make. We are a fiduciary to the school district. I cannot put you in an instrument that legally would put you in harm's way. That is contrary to my role here. When a school district wants to finance something, I am going to show you the most effective, cost-effective method and the least intrusive method to do that for not only your ongoing balance sheet financings, but for the future as well. If I did not believe you could get into this financing, I would have to legally be bound to tell you to do so. I am legally bound to tell you that paying cash for this versus financing it will be more detrimental. There's an ongoing concept that cash is king, and it always is. Nothing will ever be as cheap as if you pay cash for it. But we must live in the reality of our financial situations. We would all like to drive nice cars, but none of us have $50,000 to go pop on a car that when you drive it off the lot is worth $45,000. That's why you finance things. You may incur those extra interest dollars, but what you're doing is maintaining liquidity. The one thing we do have going for us on this financing, if it were to go through, is that on the flip side, not all that money goes out the door at once. We'll work side by side with Mr. Thompson to make certain that those monies, as borrowed, are not put idle while they're being ready to be spent. They're going to be invested. And on this side of the aisle right now, gaining that liquidity plus investing that can mitigate some of that interest cost, because short-end investments are very lucrative right now. You maintain liquidity and still get optimal repayment. That was part of the overall stratagem behind this concept.
I have a question for you.
Certainly.
On the agenda tonight is an agenda item to approve going for the financing for this project. Did you have any discussions with our board attorney, Dan McIntyre, about the wording that went onto that?
I worked peripherally with Tom Wilson at Dinsmore. He was the one that drafted the resolutions for it.
And he gave that to our attorney?
But he is your attorney.
Oh, okay, so what I'm saying is an attorney drew the language
Oh,
that's
Tom.
on the agenda
Oh, absolutely.
tonight.
That's
Yeah, I
from
just wanted to make that clear.
Tom Wilson,
Yeah.
Dinsmore Shoal, former. They've gone through a couple different names over the. Do you remember what they are, Steve?
We've been doing our work for a while.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, you know Tom, I know that. So Tom is a long time veteran of the public finance industry, long time.
You're in Columbus, right?
He's in Columbus, that is correct. That is correct. So yeah, the resolution was drafted by your bond counsel. And any additional questions, we can certainly, I've been talking to him quite a bit on this with Mr. Thompson, so.
Thank you.
You got it, anytime, anytime.
Thank
It's a
you.
pleasure to come out here. I love coming out here. Come out here quite often, mentor Painesville, so it's always a pleasure to see the board. Mr. Thompson, tomorrow, any questions, by all means, make myself fully available. You send me an email, I'll be on top of it right away. I'll let Mr. Wilson, Tom Wilson, as well as RBC Andrew Lasky, the underwriter, know about our discussions here tonight, and I can provide whatever is needed. Do not hesitate to ask. All right.
So, Mike, I'd like to say one thing.
Okay.
I myself appreciate your professionalism, and thank you very much.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.
Anything else on special report? Or are we going to delay
I think
that?
that's enough. Because we still have the 5-hour forecast. I mean, he brought a
The 5-hour forecast.
He brought a, Dr. Thompson brought a
forecast.
board tonight
That's offensive.
to pencil it all out. So I'm gonna try to keep my stuff short. So I'm done. For now. That's the superintendent update.
Oh, okay, I see. Okay,
Okay,
got it, got it.
all right, the treasurer will come later.
All right.
Okay.
Sorry. I forgot.
Okay. Discussion of old business. I have an old business item. The trailers that were over at Buckeye are now gone, and I would like to add that they were very unsafe and not good for the kids. And when they tore them down, took a few pictures of mold in the walls. Okay, this particular picture was a corner of one of the trailers that was literally falling apart. This had been going on for years. Okay, and if anyone wants to look at these pictures, I'll leave them here, but I just want to say thankfully for this district and the betterment of our students, those trailers are gone. So that's what I have for old business. Anyone else?
I have old business. I think it was like in July, I'd sent an email to the entire board about the engagement survey. And at that time, I asked for some collaboration on what we could do as a board to make sure that our staff and to address some of the concerns that our staff brought up. So just to refresh everyone, I'm not sure if you've looked at it or thought about it since the last meeting. But a couple of the themes were that there's just frustration with the Board of Education, specifically that the board decisions do not reflect the vision or day-to-day realities of school. There's also a board and district and community image, so they feel there's a negatively affected the district's public reputation, and some of the things there is political agendas, creative political division, hesitant to enroll their own children. There's also demoralization due to board action, so staff is dissatisfied and low morale around, they feel unsupported. And then they just feel there's an instability. Those were some of the main issues that I had sent to everybody. How it sums it up is that the most consistent theme is that the board is not perceived as aligned with the district leadership, staff needs, or the stated vision of Riverside. There are concerns within the administration and staff regarding governance overreach, lack of collaboration, and decisions made without stakeholder input. So I was asked, at the last meeting, I asked for us to collaborate as a board, and I was asked, nope, there was no collaboration here, and I was asked, well, what do you want to do? So that's what I went out and did. I came up with an idea that I'd like to suggest that we form a committee for now that would contain 2 board members, the district administration, and some teachers or staff members, so that we can have, the staff can have direct conversation with the board, so we can get that information directly from them and hear what they're feeling. So at this time, I'd like to suggest that we put that committee together with either myself or Mrs. Grassi and one of the 3 of you. And then those 2 people would go and sit down with Dr. Tino, Mr. Thompson, and the whether it's union representation or some leadership from the staff, and start thinking about how we put those meetings together and start listening to our staff and personnel out there. So that is my suggestion. Take any thoughts on that?
I love that idea.
I'll chime in a little bit. I did sit down with the superintendent, and we went through the whole survey, building by building, and we have a very good consensus on what's going on. He's working on a lot of those issues, and I'm very satisfied with where it stands at this point.
Yeah, so I'm not concerned about the issues that the superintendent and the treasurer can control. I'm concerned about the issues that are because of us as a board. And that Dr. Ortino and Mr. Thompson aren't responsible for those, we are.
So I've thought about this quite a lot actually lately, and it is my suggestion, similar to that, is that we do have some sort of standing meeting with groups of staff, even parents, students. I feel like we need to get more input on an ongoing basis without, not to not include our administration, so don't get me wrong, but I feel like having third-party go-betweens sometimes is not as effective. I would like to hear from people directly, because when you hear from people through third parties, I don't think their issues don't come across the way that they would like them to, because they're not speaking for themselves. Somebody else is speaking for them, and I would like to hear from people directly rather than through a third party. Not that I don't want you guys to be involved, I would like you to be present, but I feel like there's something to be said for actually sitting down together. I've been on this board for 16 years and we've never done that, and I feel it's time to do that. I feel like it's time to do that.
Well, the data came through all anonymously, and all the questions were equal across, all buildings and other staff, and so you have a very good consensus of where they're coming from in each building, and we understand some of their concerns, but like I said, a lot of those things are being addressed. This was the first survey. There are improvements being made. The next survey will come about whenever it comes about, and then we can be able to judge that to look for improvement. But right now, I don't think there's anything, in my opinion, and with the discussions that warrants, we could always look into it, but I think a lot of these things are being addressed, and I have a much better understanding of the climate, so to speak, of the different buildings and what their concerns are.
So, Dr. Ortino, with what the work you're doing, here's some of the comments. Staff perceives the board decisions not reflect the vision or day-to-day realities of schools. Respondents express frustration that the board is contributing to division and undermining progress made at the district level. They've cited the board has political agendas, micromanagement, and lack of transparency. They feel the board's actions have created political division and damaged trust. Comments suggest board actions are factors in staff feeling unsupported, unrecognized, and even ashamed of the district's direction. I believe we, as a board, need to address those. I don't believe our superintendent is responsible for that. And us sitting down with a group of people and collaborating with them
But
could not hurt.
all of those responses were anonymous, so how do you know which ones have a gripe and which ones don't?
It doesn't matter.
We start asking.
I mean, do you ask them, okay, which one of you,
No.
have a complaint about us, come and talk to us about it, or just everybody come here and raise your hand if you have
No, we
if
would
you
form a
complain?
committee, we'd work with the administration, we'd put together a process, just like any other committee meeting, to start collecting and having open discussion. It's not picking out anybody, that's not our goal. Believe me, I believe the teachers in our district, they talk to each other, they know what's going on, and they can share those thoughts with us no matter who they are.
That was very clear in the survey that they do that, yes.
Correct, and that's why we need to address this as a board. These are specifically about the board, not anything else.
Are you saying the board would be responsible for the staff?
No, I'm not saying that at all.
Because that's one of what you read.
No, I'm saying we would have a committee, just like we do for curriculum, just like we do for everything else. And we would sit down with the administration, a group of teachers, however that looks, we have to figure that out, and we'd have discussion. We'd let them air what they're thinking, what they're talking about, let us understand what's going on. Because right now they don't feel supported that way, and this is a way that we could support
Now,
them.
when you say they, do you know who these people are? Because it was anonymous.
All right, forget
So-
it. Again, is
so
the idea of
let
putting
me-
together
let me
a
ask-
committee?
let me
I don't
ask
know
a
who they are,
question.
Mr. Official. Again, this is general comments from the district.
Right.
So what does it hurt to put together a committee for us to start working with them?
The question I have is, who is them? Do we know who they are?
Staff, teachers, non-teachers, bus
And
drivers,
is
custodians.
the board responsible for the staff and teachers?
No, but I would like to hear from them directly. I would like to hear in their own words what they find to be issues, and so that we could collaborate together to come up with solutions along with the administration sitting there saying, yeah, those would be workable. We could do that. That's easy. That's not. We can't do that. You know, like it would be really helpful. I feel like we would learn a lot from one another. Like I said, 16 years, we've never had conversations directly with one another, and I think it's time that we
Well,
do
why
that.
did it take so long?
I don't know, like,
Okay, so let me just ask this, are you guys willing to form a committee? It does not hurt, it would be one of the three of you, one of the two of us in the administration, and I've already talked to the teachers union, I know they're up for it, and it would get this ball rolling. So I mean, I guess that's the question.
Instead of just a drop-dead question right there, let's have a little more discussion. So when you look at a board member's responsibility as written, it's the board's responsibility and requirement, I think, to be in communication with people throughout the district, which includes staff and teachers and anyone else who works in the district. So my question is, have you been communicating with various different people to find out and get some feedback from people, someone that may be addressing, say, oh yeah, you know, I did write that. Have you gotten any more information from people other than a generic anonymous?
Yes,
and
I've
I
received
think
a
that-
lot of information.
and I think the general consensus is that they would like to have a committee
Yes.
that would meet and discuss issues that go on day to day. Like,
Yeah.
hey, did you know this? No, I did not, but thanks for sharing, what can we do about that?
So
I
it's
feel
an
it's a-
open communication forum is what you're
Absolutely.
saying.
And I feel like we could support one another and support our staff in all respects. Not just our teaching staff, but our
staff.
classified staff as well. There are half of our employees are classified staff. I feel like we should involve them also.
So I have a question. So when there's a committee and people are meeting, who is going to be in those meetings?
Oh my gosh, I think she just said that.
I said two
Okay,
board
like
members.
what people, like what teachers from what buildings, what principals,
I
what
just
staff?
said, we have to sit down and figure out all the tactical pieces,
Yeah.
Mr. Yes, I did.
Okay,
I said,
no,
with the administration, we need to sit down and figure out all the tactical pieces of this. But the idea is what I'm asking you guys to
yeah.
consider.
I think it's a good idea. I think communication is important. I think it's a good idea. What I'm questioning is when people are anonymously saying things and you don't know who they are, and you create a program for that, and you don't know who those people are, how do you address that?
And that's the
Okay.
good thing about being anonymous. They can speak their minds. And so they've spoken their minds, and we've absorbed that. And, you know, it's being worked through.
You know what I would love to have? I would love to have a district where people can speak their minds and feel comfortable speaking their minds to my face. Let's face it, like to each other, not through a suggestion box or a survey. I want
Okay,
them
so-
I want people to feel comfortable, like we should be able to do that, and we don't do it. And I think the time is right to do that. I think people want to do that, so why not put that together and start thinking about how we can facilitate that, so in January, when it comes time to assign individuals to committees, we can have a standing committee that would actually address that.
So
Okay.
is
It
that
would be
a
great.
suggestion? We
I-
look to January to see
No.
what kind of committee we would form?
No, I would like to
should
start
talk
this
about it now.
immediately.
I wanted to say something. You know, one of the things that is part of the evaluation conference is this before Steve was here, and he is new, but we've had a lot of new administrators and new teaching staff and you know, new central office staff as well that are settling in. And we often have discussions about that and how things are going. But, you know, during the evaluation conference and some of the other meetings we've had, we talked about that survey and what was a concern, starting with the students, and how we can address situations with students And then, you know, specific buildings, what's going on with the staff and the concerns that were expressed. Some had to do with parents. And we had discussions about that, and we felt we needed to start there. And Dr. Rotino was very helpful with his suggestions about plans he wanted to do to address those things. As far as the board, we're sitting here with a, you know, a new board coming on board in you know, January, and I think that would be a good time to do something like this, because you start something and then different things can change. So I just feel that the timing, it's just the timing, I would wait until January.
Well, there's no reason why we can't start planning to determine how it's facilitated, who would sit on that, how we work that out, what the agendas would be. Like, we could be starting that already. I don't feel like we should wait to start the process. It's a great idea. Thank you for bringing it up.
No, that's great. Can you create an outline, a template?
We can move on from old business. I'm good.
You don't want to create a template?
Mr. Official, I'd like to assign 2 board members to start meeting with the district administration to start talking about what these meetings look like. That's what I would like to do.
Okay, and I'm asking for a template so we have something to work
You want
from.
more money about this committee meeting than we have in this contract to spend 1/3 of our PI fund. That's amazing. Totally amazing. So again, I will wait. I will have my own discussions with the administration, and I will continue to talk to teachers like I do, and I will get their feedback. I'm telling you, this is needed based on the discussions that I have had. If the board is unwilling to do it, a committee meeting. If they are unwilling to do it, I just find that amazing. So we can move on.
I think the board's very willing to do it, as people
We can
have
move on.
stated here.
We can move
And
on.
I'm asking for just a template.
And I'm asking for another person to work with me, to work with the administration to create that. Thank you.
I will be happy to work with you.
Did I hear something from the end of the table?
Yes, I said I would be happy to work with Mrs. Krasinski to do that.
Okay, so are we talking about you and Ms. Krasinski forming a committee to do what you're saying? I'm just saying I'd like to have something written to see what the format is.
Sure, I can write that up in the morning.
Okay, so I think that would be wonderful to bring, and once you have a format, we can even call a special meeting and approve it. That would be not hard to do.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you. All right, anything else on old business? Okay, new business, I have something on new business. I called Painesville Township and spoke with trustee Gabe Cicconetti, and I requested a meeting with Painesville Township and the Sheriff's Department to discuss the Madison Avenue traffic problem. I invited Principal Tracy Shannery and our Superintendent, Dr. Rotino. Trustee Gabe Cicconetti invited Painesville Township Zoning Director Sean Ishay. Principal Tracy Shannery could not attend and offered to send Deputy Ward in her place. And I'd just like to say right now, Deputy Ward is that deputy over at Riverview that stopped that shooter last year and saved lives. So just again, a shout out to Deputy Ward. Dr. Rotino, of course, was there, and I was there. We discussed options to solve the problem of cars backed up on Madison Avenue during drop-off and pickup. And many of you may be aware of this, and some of you may not be aware of it. But what happens is cars line up on Madison Avenue, and it's not an ideal situation. And even the buses, when they go to pass the cars, have to go into the other lane, ongoing traffic. Not the safest. Okay, so present at the meeting was Trustee Gabe Cicconetti, Chief Deputy Bob Izzo, Director of Zoning Sean Ishay, Deputy Ward Dr. Rotino, and me. We discussed options to solve the problems of cars backed up. And after discussing the options, we believe we found a short-term solution and a long-term solution. The long-term solution will kick in about 3 to 4 months after the addition and parking lot are completed, and will involve utilizing the new 60-car or approximately 60-car parking lot, so cars are not lined up on Madison Avenue. Everyone was in agreement, and hopefully, after 6 years of this traffic problem, it looks like maybe we have a solution, And Dr. Rotino, you were there, and I know you were going to start to implement that a little bit. What
Yeah,
say you?
So I forwarded the map to Mrs. Chantry's, let them know that Painesville Township is dropping off some, I think we said some traffic barrels and some signs to help, and she is getting the word out to her people to start it, I believe, Monday. She's going to try.
Oh, Monday already.
I think we're going to try to fast track it as much as we can to get the temporary solution in place.
And there was no cost to this. The only cost would have been possibly purchasing cones, but Painesville Township so generously offered cones, right?
I don't know how long we have them for, but we'll see.
So hopefully only a few months.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with that, but I think we've got something to move forward with until the next.
And again, Deputy Ward, in the meeting, we talked about it. He stated it. He's pretty much running that whole program over there, handling all the traffic. So he's doing a great job.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I have for new business.
So I have one piece. I know that Concord Township and I believe even Painesville Township both had informational meetings about property taxes and what some of the changes that are being suggested to property taxes would do. Considering that school districts are recipients of almost 50% of the property tax dollars, I think it might be helpful for us to host one of our own, perhaps in conjunction with either one of the townships or perhaps even both. I would like to consider us as being on the forefront of advocating for potential changes, but making sure that those potential changes are smart and well thought out. I don't know if we're amenable to that type of a presentation. I know Dr. Thompson has just stepped out, so he's not hearing this, but
Here he is. He's
There
coming
he
now.
is.
So we've had some internal discussions about what this looks like. Do we do it like a town hall
Right.
type format? Do we do it in a video to present it? I know that Concord Township, he did the video, a couple live sessions in the video as well. I think it's something we can do. It is really trying to hit a moving target right now.
Right.
Like they've introduced more bills. I think we do, it does behoove us to do some sort of information on property taxes. I volunteer Dr. Thompson to do that.
I volunteer
See what
Mike
happens when you're
Priscilla.
away.
But no, I think it makes to see what the landscape is. We both Dr. Thompson and myself were invited to a Lake County forum on property tax, hosted by the commissioners it's in next week or within the next 2 weeks. Local school districts, so Lake County school districts coming together to have some discussion, to find some information. Maybe even after that, we will.
Are they going to videotape that? I think it would be interesting. Our county auditor
know.
has done a lot of work. He was appointed to the committee to investigate options for property taxes and have some conversations down at the state level. I actually think they've done some great work. They've come up with some interesting solutions and, maybe not all in our favor, but I think at least they're trying to do something that actually makes sense rather than just let's abolish property taxes, right? Like,
I agree. That report, I believe, is due by the 30th.
yeah, the 30th of September, and I know that seeing as how our own Lake County Treasurer has been, auditor has been appointed to that committee and is responsible for a lot of the good thoughts that have come out of that work group, maybe we could invite him to present to, maybe even at our next board meeting. I know he presented at the last commissioners meeting and it was brief and whatever, but it was helpful. I think that would go a long way. So that's just my suggestion for new business.
So do we want to put him on the agenda?
If he's available and amenable to coming, it can't hurt just for him to give an update and discuss
we can
what's
reach
been
out.
done.
Reach out and see if he could be on
See
the
if he can
agenda.
come to talk about property taxes.
That's all.
I can we can work on some sort of town hall type situation.
That too,
as well.
right?
Like, yeah,
Agenda
sure.
and/or town hall
Yeah,
thing.
Even after this is our meeting with the county is the 2nd, so it's next week. So maybe even we'll schedule it after that, so we kind of have a better idea of what's happening in county.
Yeah,
Why? I have some ideas for them.
thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, anything else? Okay, buildings and grounds, and Superintendent's Business Advisory Liaison. So in the Business Advisory, basically just starting up again in another new year. Some information was shared about the senior capstone project. And there are now options, because I think, Dr. Rotino, when this started, it was pretty stodgy, if you will. And now there are options, because you have different students that may want to be involved, but might not be able to put in all the time that was previously going to be required. So now there's options for 100 hours of participation, 150, and 250. So that opens up a little bit more opportunity, maybe for a few more of the students that want to be involved. And then there was a basic discussion about 24-25 Business Advisory Council plan, and in future presentations and where we're going, what the anchor experience requirements are, 8th grade, 9th grade, and then we talked a little bit about the Junior Fair Board and with Lisa Miller. And, you know, she's very good, and she's one of the people that attends. And then also inform and educate students about Lakeland Community College and how that fits for career options and choices and financial effect. And so I think that last one, the financial effect, for a lot of people, I think is very important. And now we are going to be required to have a semester of finance, right? By law.
We currently have they currently take a semester of personal finance. That's been a current graduation requirement, I want to say, for the last 5 years or so.
Yeah, and now it's law, right?
It has been law.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so, so anyway, the financial effect for kids that want to go to college or think they want to go to college, starting out at Lakeland, it's a much lower cost option, and for most of them, they're still living at home and they don't have that room and board and food expense. And so I think that some of the work that this council is doing is going to help some kids. So anyway, do you have anything else to add?
I thought it was a great meeting. I love those meetings. Actually, they're really kind of fun. It's nice to reach out to local businesses, and kind of the work product that comes out of that committee is amazing. And they really do help guide a lot of the opportunities we have for students. So it's a good one. I do want to reiterate, we do offer 31 hours of credit from Lakeland in-house. So hopefully we'll have more students take advantage of that as we continue to go through.
Right,
So they
so
actually go to college as sophomores or juniors even.
So really, just to clarify, Lakeland courses will be offered here,
Correct.
basically. Okay, so, and that's, 31 hours of opportunity. Buildings and grounds, discussion about a varsity softball field scoreboard, and $11,000 to install, $10,000 for the scoreboard. The Alumni Association is donating $3,500, and then Nick's going to be in charge of selling advertising to pay for it, right?
That's what I'm here for.
Nick says that's what he's here for. So anyway, it'll pay for itself over time, and it will also, when you're driving in off of 84, that backstop is really what you see, and that field is what you see. So putting up a scoreboard and other advertising opportunities, it'll be very visible, and it'll look good, don't you think?
Hoping so.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, brand new and all of that, and so yeah, Nick's going to be in charge of that. Thank you, Nick. Melridge parking lot sewer drain repair. There was a company that found the catch basin was collapsing and needed repair. We discussed that. Of course, you have to fix it, $5,570, and of course that'll be done. Field turf maintenance report. The tears in the turf, there were 6 of them, were repaired, and all the testing passed on the turf. And our director of maintenance, Mr. Arlesic, said that the turf has reached about 3/4 of the life. It's in fair condition, probably has 2 to 3 years left. Would that be accurate, Rich?
3 to 5.
Okay, he's going to try and stretch it. So it's in okay shape. We're looking forward to replacing it at some point, and it'll be maintained along the way. Parkside and Riverview boilers, 2 more failed heat exchangers. Of course, these are schools that are only 6 years old, and we've had just constant problems with the heat exchangers. And Mr. Arlesic has ordered the 2 heat exchangers, And just hoping to cut that cost down as much as possible. Looking at the company, to honoring the product that they sold to us through the construction company. And so Mr. Arlesik's working on that to get that cost as low as possible. But they are pricey. Rich, you want to explain what the price range is on those things?
Currently, right now, as of 4 o'clock this afternoon, a single heat exchanger is $35,000.
So you're looking at $70,000 on, you know, for 35 for each building. Painful. Okay. CTE and Riverview construction update. Well, but we got an update here. So both roofs are installed. Stairs are going in at Riverview. Mid-October, the parking lot at Riverview. That's what's planned. And then I have here, I have DK for Mr. Keeney. Buckeye going for zoning approval soon. Preliminary detention area work is going to be into the woods a little bit. I think we're looking at removing some trees, right, to accommodate that.
Well, we're just gonna do a cleanup first. We can't remove any trees yet. We'll have a survey done once that clearing is done, or once the cleanup is done, so the surveyors can get in there and stake out where it is, and then we can determine exactly what trees need to come out.
And also, Mr. Keeney said he had talked with the homeowners that are at the end of the property there, and had some discussion with them about what they want and don't want, and it looks like the plans that we are developing are going to satisfy their desires, right?
Yes.
So, of course, we want to keep our neighbors and parents happy. Okay, that's what I have for buildings and grounds. Next, we have curriculum and programming.
Okay, Curriculum Programs Committee met on September 24th. Mr. Tom Hack, who was formerly a board member here, provided an overview for the LifeWise program, which is slated to begin in 3rd grade at Buckeye as a pilot, and that will begin the first week of November. With House Bill 8, the governor's bill passed allowing schools to provide release time for religious instruction. This program is focused on character development, anti-bullying, and absenteeism as some of the topics. 3 conditions exist. Students must have parental consent, the use of non-instructional time, which will be during lunch and recess, will be once a week, and that there's no cost to the district. Students will walk to the nearby church, it's right around the corner, escorted by volunteers that have background checks, much like our staff in district. And bagged lunches will be available, so the students will not be missing their lunch. They'll be able to take something with them. We worked that out through the cafeteria. And then Melridge will be the next school involved in the program. Was it second semester or later this year sometime?
I believe it was later this year. Just to clarify, House Bill 8 mandated.
It was mandated. Okay.
There's
They
a-
mandated. Okay. So, you know, you may or may not hear about that depending on, you know, whether you're a Buckeye parent or not. So on next month's agenda, because we were waiting on a quote for this, there's going to be the approval of Discovery Ed. It's an online science resource for kindergarten through grade 12. And this is a renewal and a widely used program, and it's paid for with general funds. And then the Wit and Wisdom reading program that we began last year in kindergarten through grade 2. We will have some additional instruction this year in writing across the grade levels. So on the continuum, you know, what do we want to achieve in 1st grade for writing, and then that flows into 2nd grade and so on. And I guess after discussions, there was a need to supplement with that. There is also a new version of this program, and that has been put out there. And the only difference is they pared down some of the time on certain parts of the lessons, as it was, you know, taking up more time than we were allotting for reading, and it was a lot to keep the student attention. And so, you know, that was something I think we were going to make some adjustments on anyway. In grades 3 through 5, the benchmark reading program is also being utilized for the first time this year. Teachers have had the materials over the summer and had training and will continue to meet at grade levels to share their experiences. This program incorporates social studies and science content. It also targets skill areas where students may need additional instruction. And then in grades 7 through 8, they are looking at an English language arts curriculum, some type of series for next year. And I would assume that they're trying out some of the ones that are out there. All right, and then Mrs. Camille Ritt, who is our Executive Director of Student Services, gave an update on preschool at Melridge. Currently, all 4 sections are off to a great start, and anyone on a waiting list has been placed. She said it is desirable for preschool to remain together for collaboration and sharing of resources, and as long as space is available at Riverview, it should be possible to place these classes together so it allows for more space at Melridge. Housing developments are in process in the Riverview area, and we will be able to accommodate students in right-sized classes, because right now we have, I think, the use of the music room, and we have some students in pods that will be moving to some of the new classrooms. We did end up, like Buckeye, having one less section of kindergarten this year, which wasn't anticipated. That's always an unknown until they do registration the next year, how many sections. But that's unusual because we've been pretty steady at 5 sections per kindergarten level at Riverview and 3 at Buckeye. And then the preschool licensing also has had some changes, and our district will not be participating in the Step Up to Quality at this time, correct? All right, and then Dr. Rotino briefly reviewed, and he's going to do it tonight again a little bit, about the recent state report card. Overall, our report card is identical to last year statistically, with improvements in some areas specifically. All schools receive 3 stars and above. New programs often take, like the new implementation of a reading program, a math program, that often takes at least 2 years to see results from that program, because it's all new information not only to the teachers but to the students. And then more information will be detailed at a work session that we're going to set for October, so we can go through it more in depth. So our next meeting for Programs Committee will be at 7 a.m. on October 20th. Anybody wants to attend?
So I know you mentioned Camille Ritt. I was able to stop in and say hi to her and ask her how things were going, and she says she is settling in very well, and she likes being here and likes what she's doing.
Right.
So,
and I think she was managing, was it 8 preschools over at Willoughby Lake? Because I visited their playground, and right now we're managing 4. So, all right. And then there's nothing to report with the Buckeye. I mean, most of the conversation about Buckeye right now is about where we're moving forward with either funding, building on, whatever. And then the strategic plan liaison, which I serve as, we really haven't met since last spring because you developed the one plan where, the pathway to excellence, so that we, are following a template to improve instruction and have that embedded in what we do each and every day.
thank you for that.
Yep.
Next, we have Policy Committee and Alumni Association.
So we have first read of policy on the agenda tonight, and a policy committee meeting coming up here early October. So if any questions on any of the policy, please let us know. And the second read should be on next month's board agenda. And then Alumni Association, they are preparing for their Alumni Hall of Fame dinner, which is October 11th. And they are still accepting anybody who wants to buy a ticket and to join us there. They'll be honoring Beth Knezovich, Frank, and if I say a name incorrectly, I apologize, but Frank Baccarello, Jen Dodge Yorko, Andrew Brown, Bettina Lawson, and Brian Schwank. will be the members that are getting inducted this year. It's a really nice dinner, and you have until October 1st to buy a ticket. So if anyone's interested, just go on the Alumni Association's website, and you can purchase the ticket right from there.
Thank you for that. One question on the first reading and then second reading. Dr. Rattino, you said some of those policies have an option that we have to choose from?
So we have chosen them based on what we've done historically.
So
And
you've
yes,
done that?
Yeah, they've been selected, and they
Okay.
are selected in the first reading like they are.
Okay.
If there are some things that we need to discuss, we can do a first reading after the policy committee.
Thank you for that.
Sure thing.
Okay. Okay. Booster liaison?
Sure. RLEF held a meeting 2 weeks ago. They are working on getting all of their events for the
RPTA.
Did I say RLEF?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. RPTA. They're working on getting all their events onto the school calendars so that people know what's going on at their PTO level in their buildings. And the big news is that the egg hunt will be on April 4th, which is actually the day before Easter this year, but they didn't want it to conflict with spring break, and so they chose to have it the day before Easter. And again, that will probably be at noon.
Yes.
12 to 12:01.
Yeah, so look forward to that. And other than that, like I said, try and cooperate and participate with all your PTO and boosters, things that they are doing. They do a great job for our district, and I know that Nick is really good about putting out there if you need to have dinner plans, anytime that these PTOs are having fundraisers at the various locations around here. So pay attention to the Facebook page because he'll put that out there like the day before. So that's all I have.
Thank you for that. Update from the superintendent.
Okay, like I promised, I'm going to try to keep it quick. There are a few things I'd like to mention this month, and it's actually been over 6 weeks, so it's been a while. We've had a lot of stuff going on. Wow! If you came to the ring championship ceremony, it was super cool. We hosted our first ever state championship ring ceremony at the halftime of the September 5th football game. We're able to hand that out to all of the girls except for the 2 seniors who were off at their colleges. And if you look, the ring is on the right. It is really cool. So that was a great event to be a part of, and I thought it really went off well. It was at halftime of that game, so it was a lot of fun. We had the marching band in the back that played some songs for them too. It was just a great night. Always proud of our resource officers, the 25-26 safety team that we have. We appreciate the deputies for keeping our students safe and staff safe, and we're thankful for our partnership with Lake County Sheriff. It comes into play more than all the time. Just having that resource there, having a contact right to the authorities is a great thing. And then all of the other work that they do to help keep the whole ground safe and flows where traffic and all that. I try to turn left in the morning. If it weren't for the deputies directing traffic, I never get in here. So it's a great thing along the way. And they recognize my car too, so I think I get preferential treatment. So it's even nicer at times. So when they figure out yours, they'll help you out too. It's a good thing. Congratulations to our golf team again. Our boys golf team is WRC champs for the 3rd straight season. They went 10-0 on the course. The girls golf were co-champs, and what's noticeable about this is only their 2nd year in existence of us having a girls golf team, and year 2 they're already champs. So great job, ladies, and I'm really excited for both teams to see where they go. And they've had some great weather for golf lately. Well, not this week. We did release the quality profile. Check your mailboxes; it'll be in there soon. That is our companion piece to the state report card that talks about a lot of the community effectiveness, what we do here, some of the different programming we offer, some things really to be proud of that what makes Riverside special. That will be out shortly in your mailboxes. And I did mention we do have the state report card is out. We are nearly identical to where we were last year. We would like to schedule a work session because I went into this and then we did the 5-year forecasting. We would not get out of here until tomorrow. So it's about an hour to go dig into these parts. So if we can pencil in a work session for the report card like we've done in the past, I think that'd be great. So anybody have any ideas for dates or times or what doesn't work? And
What are you thinking?
all of that. So I would like to do the week of October 13th if possible. Really want to have Mrs. Linemember, our new curriculum supervisor, take some of the lead on this. She's really our data guru in the district, so she's going to work through some of that. But she is on leave until that date, so she comes back the week of the 13th.
So this would be an evening?
We can do evening or we can do daytime. We've done them both in the past, and we have filmed them. So whichever works best for the board. And
I think more people would be available in the evening if they wanted to look at it. But that would be my thought, but
Any suggestions?
My evenings are clear that week of the 13th. My mornings, my days are pretty packed.
What time would you be able to do evening?
So it depends on, let me just look.
And do you have a day you would prefer?
No, the only, the Wednesday the 15th is the bad day because I go until 6:30 with meetings. So
would the 16th work? Keep it on a Thursday?
Thursday?
I'm good.
And what time do you think?
I'm good after 4 p.m.
So after 4 on the 16th?
I mean, can we do a little bit later than
Like
4?
what time?
Because some people are
Like
still
what
working.
time?
Like 5?
5?
Yeah, 5. That'd
5
be great.
o'clock.
5 would be great for everybody, I think. If
Okay.
that works for everyone else. Ms. Carson?
Linda's checking her calendar.
5 would be,
5:30? 6?
I'll compromise and do 5:30.
5:30? Okay.
No, I
It's just
can't
hard to
do
get out of work,
5:30.
So-
that's all.
Are you kidding?
Like it matters.
Okay.
Okay, so that's 5:30 on the 16th?
5:30 on the 16th?
Work session?
For the report card.
I'm sure. Thank you.
On the
Sure, you want to add it to the calendar?
Six-
No, no,
16th?
Right?
16th, Thursday?
16th to
Thursday the
Thursday.
Yeah, Lori
16th,
can't do the
5:30.
15th.
Yeah.
Wait, no?
Okay? Is that good? Okay, it's good.
October. We are good. Okay, perfect. And I believe, oh, and then the individual schools' rankings as well are on the state website. We'll get into more of those. But again, Mrs. Brewster did steal my thunder. All schools were over 3 stars. We did have some noticeable improvements. Buckeye is 4.5 stars this year. When we moved the 5th graders to Lamouth, it did change some of the grade levels that are in there, and it does significantly impact report card. It's not always, and it's not that it's great, it's just there are different measures now and different things weight differently. The other thing to note is this report card included for the first time college and career readiness. We scored 3 stars, and when we get to Thursday, I'll show you that we should have been higher, but it's kind of a jaded measure. The state knows that they're working to fix it. Because some of our measures are out there that really show that our kids are going to college and actually being successful there, but they're not getting credit because they didn't take 3 AP classes or 12 credit hours, but they did 2 AP classes and 6 credit hours, which is actually 12 if you do the math because of the college that comes through, but it doesn't quite count. So those are types of things that they're looking to change for next year. But overall, we did kind of stay consistent, grow in a couple areas. Lamouth did go from 3.5 to 3 stars, and we're looking at kind of some of those specifics to that. The one frustrating thing is progress. The underlying data behind the progress measure is never out until late, and it's not out yet, and that's the one we really know we need to make a lot of growth in. So once we get that out, we're going to take a look at those specifically and kind of continue to work to grow our students. More on that on the 16th. Couple upcoming community events next week, right, is homecoming. Next week is homecoming. Parade is Thursday the 2nd. Game against Mayfield is Friday the 3rd. Come out and join. Watch us march. I think we pass out candy, so it's a great event for that as well. Fun time to walk down. Great community pep rally at the end as well. Also, Boo Fest is the 18th, put on by National Honor Society. Boo Fest is one of those great community activities that are really special at Riverside. If you have young children, bring them out for this family-friendly Halloween, get everyone in the spirit. They turned this room into a haunted house that is appropriate for kids. They have the gym is filled with activities. There's a young student haunted house in the John R. cafeteria typically, and they sometimes have the East Coast Custard Truck here too, so it's a great event. And I think that now concludes my event, and the main event is coming soon.
Thank you for that. And we have Finance, Audit, and Personnel Committee and the Legislative Liaison.
Okay, the meeting was held on September 16th. Personnel updates, pre-approval of certain personnel positions were done in order for them to be in place for the new school year. Bus driver staffing is still an issue, and all available qualified personnel are filling in to keep the routes on schedule as best they can. Long-term postings will start for upcoming anticipated medical leave absences starting around the first of the year. Health insurance presentations by DCW offering an alternative to standard coverage were done, and interest in this was well received. The Samaritan Fund is voluntary and provides cost savings and ease of health care navigation for those requiring more intensive health care needs. This program also will result in savings to the district. Prescription cost savings are being shopped at this time and will benefit those covered as well as the district. Board agenda discussions included budget forecasting requirements and timing of the reports. State requirements and budget uncertainties remain an issue, and future funding options were discussed with more information on alternatives to be presented soon. Donations will be accepted from Painesville Senior Center and Parkside PTO as presented in the agenda. That concludes the report.
Thank you for that. Update from the treasurer.
Well, good evening, members of the board, staff, and community. I see we have a lot of staff members. I assume they're coming here to hear my presentation. I think that's got to be what it is, right? Yeah, I figured. So I want to start with appropriations first, and just the verbiage of that. Understanding that appropriations, the final appropriations that you'll be asked to pass today, this evening, is the budget. And those words are pretty interchangeable. So this is based on Ohio Revised Code. I should be clicking, I'm sorry. Down. That had nothing to do with the finance, kids in scary clothes. It didn't, I promise. Wow, we've got a lot of stuff up here, meaningless slides. Okay, so 5705.38 requires that the board pass this resolution annually. All the dates, of course, have been changed due to House Bill 96, and we're at October 1st, but we'll be much sooner next fiscal year. And this basically what it does is it establishes the legal authority in terms of spending. So it gives us the authority to spend dollars and ensure that we're in compliance with the state. Total appropriations is $79,585,191.47. If that's not specific, I don't know what is. But remember, keep in mind, this is both the general fund, which you'll see is a much lower number, and all funds. So this is representing all of all debt services, general fund, capital projects, special revenue, enterprise, and fiduciary funds. So to give you an idea, I hit some of the highlights. Your packet has every single line item, but you can see that what the general fund is coming in at, debt retirement, permanent improvement, which we'll go into more in depth. Now don't get confused by $7,500, because essentially this district, which is unique to Riverside, we have an 003, which is normal, and then we have an 033, which is essentially the collections for the PI. So they're a little reversed. And the permanent improvement 003 was established for a specific build. Is that correct, Mike?
Yeah.
So statutory requirements, again, this resolution establishes that we maintain solid financial priorities, that we and it supports the district and the district priorities, which of course is our students first. And so the recommendation from the administration is to approve this resolution and maintain compliance with Ohio law, authorized district expenditures. I can tell you that in my first year, I am here to learn how Riverside does things. I think it's inappropriate to come in and just change things for the sake of change. Gary clearly was a knowledgeable treasurer, and Dr. Rutino's in his third year, correct? Year 3. So we're not going to change things for the sake of change, but there will be some things that we'll build and do a little bit differently moving forward. But this year I am learning the ways of Riverside, and Mike has been incredibly helpful and supportive, so thank you, Mike. So moving to the good stuff, I guess, or the more intriguing part, the 5-year forecast, if you will. But before I jump into it, I just wanted to take a few minutes, because I think you have to understand some basic principles or concepts before the numbers really resonate with you, or really before you really truly wrap your head around why are things the way they are. And speaking of that, everywhere I've ever been, the primary questions out there is asked by citizens is, why do they so often return to the ballot? And the average school district comes back for new money every 4.5 years. So we're going to be hitting somewhere, we'll see where we land, we'll get more into the numbers, but it may be 10 or 11 years. We'll see how that it ends up working itself out. And then, of course, that begs the question, are schools dangerously mismanaging their money? Are we a collective group of superintendents and treasurers and administrators and school boards that don't know what they're doing? What I'd like to do is propose to you that there's another explanation, and I just want to take just a few minutes to highlight those 3 things. But I need to put you on a time machine first. You ready to go on a time machine? You aren't old enough, but some of you are. How many people remember 1976? A few of us do, right? And what are some things that jump out to you about 1976? What was happening in 1976 bicentennial, obviously, but what else was going on? Do you remember? Do you remember getting gas in 1976? Remember the gas lines? And most importantly, inflation. We hit about 7%, and that really hit America hard, right? That really hit families hard. It hit everyone very hard. Grocery stores, gas, you name it, right? In 1976, it hit over almost 21%. So inflation's rising, and what happens to, on paper now, not for real, but what happens on paper when inflation rises? What happens to your home value? Does it rise or decline? It rises on paper. Now, nobody could buy it because nobody had any money, but on paper it was rising. And guess what happened in 1976 as your property value rose in value? What automatically rose with it? Your taxes. Your taxes rose with it. So he becomes, at this point, he's a state legislator, but at the time, George Voinovich, former Cleveland mayor, state legislator at this time, becomes our governor and a U.S. senator. So George Voinovich pens what is the most impactful legislation ever to public school funding, called House Bill 920. House Bill 920, inflation was going crazy. Schools were flush with cash. while businesses were hurting and crumbling, schools weren't, because your taxes were increasing and there was no cap on it, no control on it. So schools were doing wonderfully from a financial perspective. So House Bill 920 says that whenever a levy passes, it is frozen at that collection rate in perpetuity forever. Forever. And just to put that into real terms so you can understand. Okay, so in 1907, wait, I can't see, I'm blind, I apologize. In 1980, the district passed a levy, a continuing operating levy, at 4.5 mils. Now, a mill is 1/10 of 1% of the total property valuation. So as property values increase, so does how much a mill brings in. And every community is different. It's calculated the same, but the dollar is certainly not the same, right? So it collected 4.5 mils. It now collects 1.61 mils. From 4.5 all the way down to 1.61. So why does it do that? The county auditor, because of House Bill 920, says that a school district can't collect more money. So the county auditor ratchets that that millage down to what we call effective mills. Effective mills are much lower number than past mills. So this is kind of the predicament. We get some growth. We get some growth on inside mills, which the state legislature, which is 4.8 in totality. The state legislature is looking at taking that away. It's being talked about now. I don't know. We'll see. But our growth on revenue is very flat. 70% of our money comes from local taxes. That's where it comes from. The vast majority of our budget is coming off taxes from home. Now, I would submit to you this. Is it possible to flatline our expenditures year over year over year? Is that possible?
No.
Thank you, young man. If I had a piece of candy, I'd give it to you, because that's what I do when I was a teacher. But candy makes kids do anything. I know, it's an M&M. I go to his office and eat M&Ms. I talk to him, but I'm not there to talk to him. I just want his M&Ms. But my point is, no, we can argue about how fast it rises, but it's indisputable that it's going to rise. We have the same inflationary challenges that you do as a homeowner. We've got to repair buildings. We've got to put gas in our buses. We've got to buy new buses. We have to pay staff. You can't flatline staff forever. On and on and on. So this number, so if these were numbers, I'll just throw any numbers up there, 30 million, 20 million, 10 million, and these being years, let's say 25, 26, 27, 28. Our expenses are going to rise. And I'm sorry you can't see it, because you'd think you'd be in a public school and you could find dry erase markers, but apparently not. Those are dead ones already. I already tried those. So, but my point is, it's rising, right? Costs are rising. Well, we know that House Bill 920 is freezing us. So eventually these axes will cross, will they not? And it's normal. It happens in every single school district in the state of Ohio. And we go into deficit spending here, which we are in. I'm going to show you when we move into deficit spending, which is not very far away. And then eventually we're forced to go back to the community and ask them to increase their property taxes so that we can pay our bills. So understanding House Bill 920 is the first and most important concept for anybody to understand before you can even begin to talk about school finances. Before you throw the stone, you got to know House Bill 920 and the effects that it would have. So I would, and it's an analogous, I think, to all of us sitting here. Whatever dollar amount you make right now, whatever that is, and you're paying your bills right now, what if I said you're going to be frozen at that dollar amount next year, in the year after, and 5 years from now, and 10 years from now? Is your standard of living changing drastically? You bet. And you can't hack your way out of this. The administration, hats off to them, did over $1 million in personnel reductions. And I can tell you that it's incredibly thin in central office. This is the first time in years that I haven't had a secretary, and I'm not doing well with this. Elise, I miss her. You know, I don't, just a lot of management, or just a lot of day-to-day things are more challenging. But it's what we have to do here because we're trying to be fiscally responsible. But, you know, it doesn't end there. Unfortunately, the second piece I just want to quickly go over is diversion of state aid. So, over the past 2 decades, the General Assembly has diverted hundreds of millions of dollars from public education to private, often religious, through voucher programs in charter schools. Franklin County, just most recently, judge in Franklin County ruled that this practice violates Ohio's Constitution of separation of church and state. But in the meantime, every dollar lost to vouchers is a dollar that we have to pass on to our local homeowners to replace the dollars that we're losing to operate our schools. In the current school year, the Ohio legislature, wrap this around your head, they diverted $1 billion that was earmarked for public education to charters, to private schools, to vouchers. And if you do the research, you'll find out that the kids taking vouchers are not poor kids. They're not minority kids. They're wealthy parents who have sent their kids to HB or wherever forever, and now they have an opportunity to get money back for a high school kid, almost $9,000, and take that money with them. Well, I don't blame them. I'm not, please don't take this as I'm hacking on private school parents. I'm not. But I am disconcerted that we are sending money that our taxpayers said should go to Riverside Local School District and sending it outside of the district. And I think that's just wrong. That's number 2. And thirdly, incomplete funding reform. So the Cupp-Patterson Fair School Funding Plan was a bipartisan effort by former Republican House Speaker Robert Cupp and former Democratic Representative John Patterson. It was designed to finally fix Ohio's unconstitutional school funding system, which has been held unconstitutional not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times. Yet the legislature has failed to fully fund the plan. Currently, the funding formula assumes that school districts' costs to educate a student are the same as they were in 2022. That's what the formula calculates, that it's still 2022 and we're heading into 2026. So, it's clearly unsustainable, and the broken pledge leaves school boards across Ohio, Riverside at some point, which we'll take a look at, this school board, no choice but to place larger and more frequent property tax asks on the ballot. So this is not a school district well, it does become our problem, but it's not a school district problem, it's a state legislator problem. So in summary, homeowners often feel that schools are the reason that we have rising property taxes. In truth, circumstances beyond the control of local school boards, such as House Bill 920, of course, diversion of public funds, and charter schools and voucher programs, and the legislature's failure to honor the funding commitments that they made. And we back then, predicated our 5-year forecasts on the Cupp-Patterson Fair School funding formula, to only have that rug pulled out from underneath us. And the irony is clear. The data clearly illustrates that most effective economic strategy for improving any community is its public schools, emergency services, community parks, and areas for public enjoyment. Without these critical services, communities are less attractive for people to move into and young families to settle in, for private investment, and home buyers, of course. This stifles economic growth and development, and ultimately what it hurts is what is for most of us, our greatest investment, our home value, and it declines. So I'm going to present the utmost transparency here in giving you what our numbers are to the best of my ability. They reflect the final appropriations and where we currently stand now and where we project to look like over the next 5 years. Now, I have 5 years on here. The state's moved it to essentially a 4-year. So you're going to see fiscal year 30, but when it's reported to the state and what you would look up online will not have fiscal year 30 on it. It'll stop at fiscal year 29. Does that make sense? So you can see here on this graph, and I'll go, I know I've taken a long time and we've had a long night, but I just can't think of anything that's more pressing for public schools right now than money. But you can see what's happening in terms of our cash reserves. This is our revenue. Remember I told you that axis would cross? And it does. You can see that it crosses. And you can see the black line on the bottom is reflective of those two things crisscrossing and our cash reserves being eaten away. So we have, obviously this is tracking our general fund cash balance. And again, no surprise, you can see that it's going down and going down and going down. When once it drops below that red line across there, it's telling you that we're under even 30 days worth of cash reserves. Our board policy is 90. So speaking of ending cash balance in true days, you can see that in 26, we're at 126 days of cash reserves. We're healthy. Then we go to 93, still strong. 52 is not where we want to be, but we're not in trouble. 29 scares me. That is a very small margin in 29. And then we're 55 days under by fiscal year 30 is what we're forecasting. Now, I want to put a caveat on this. It looks doom and gloom, but I can tell you that I pulled as many forecasts as I could of other public schools across the state, and we are in a much better position than most school districts are. And that's because the district has done everything they can to run as lean as we possibly can run. So that's hats off to the administration. It has nothing to do with me, no credit for me, but the administration and the board has done a really good job of that. But you can see here that we are, hate to say this word, we are levy eminent. So where's the money come from? I'd mentioned that the majority of our money comes from local property taxes, and you can see there where it comes from. Local sources are 76% of our budget, our revenue rather, and state resources are 24%. So the state definitely helps with our foundation money, for example, but we are very reliant upon local property tax. That's just how the system works. And I came from a district that was just reverse of this, heavily reliant on the state. And that's no easy pathway either, because the state's very unpredictable. So where's the money, where is it coming, where is it going? And this is just factual. It's not a knock, it's not a negative thing. We don't make cars. We don't make widgets. We educate students. We're a service industry, and every service industry looks like this. This is pretty standard across the board, but 57% of our dollars go to wages, 26% to benefits. So that's 83% of our dollars going to pay for the people that make this whole engine move, right? So that remaining 17%, there's not a lot of wiggle room there either. That's electricity, gas, buses, et cetera, et cetera. So, and then, we're talking, we know, I'm going to say something that's going to be completely shocking to everyone in this room. You probably didn't even know it, but I'm going to guess we have 75 to 100 million in building issues. Of course, I'm being sarcastic. You all know that and have known it for a very long time. But we're spending 0.23% of our general fund on facilities and debt payments. So, cutting back, people will say, tighten your belt, do better. It's very challenging. It's very challenging to do. And then at the same time, produce a product, which Dr. Rutino was just talking about, our state report card in our schools. Yeah, we could put 45 kindergartners in a classroom with one teacher. I wouldn't do it if it paid me twice what I make, but maybe somebody would, right? So our financial outlook, so just some of the basic assumptions. We have money coming from the Lake County Financing District, which is nice. It's not a lot of money, but we get money from there. And so we had Mike and I had a lot of discussions, Dr. Rutino, about do we include that in the 5-year forecast or do we not? And ultimately the decision was not to. And the primary reason is what we do with those dollars is we offset staff. And that's already reflected in our costs for staffing. So I'm afraid it'd actually throw us off by counting it there and counting it there. So that's why it's not there. But it's certainly something we can take a look at. And Mike and I are going to review that information and make sure that as the dollars come in, we are offsetting as many staff members as we can. No staff member would even know. It doesn't do anything other than they get their check just like everybody else. It's just they're funded under this plan. Does not assume any dollars from the city of Paynesville TIF refund. So I know this is fairly new information for a lot of our school board members, maybe some of the community. You heard Mr. Priscilla brush upon it when he was saying he's working with the city of Paynesville to figure out exactly what they owe, et cetera, et cetera. But there's a lump of money that may come. I hope it does. But I did not count it because I don't have it. And then it doesn't assume any new levies or tax increases. This is just keeping things exactly as they are. So if you take a look at that first number up here, the beginning balance here, we talked about that. We had healthy balances, and we do okay from here to here. We're not in deficit spending in fiscal year 26. We slide out of there with a whopping $49,000 to the good. We can do a lot with that. Throw a party or something. But then we go into deficit spending. And it goes on across the board, and it starts to roll downhill pretty quickly. You can see our revenue. It increases, but not much. It's just the inside millage, and we get some dollars on the floor. I don't know if they're gonna eliminate the floor or not. Mr. Priscilla said he didn't think they would. I don't know, but we'll adjust this accordingly once we know a little bit more. Stayed on the conservative side. Expenditures going across, and then you can see here the first time we hit deficit spending, projected in fiscal year 27 to the tune of $4.4 million. And then the first time we go into a deficit, which you cannot do without being taken over by the state, we're at $10.4 million. There are going to be so many school districts that would do backflips to have this 5-year forecast. But we know that however it's all going to shake itself out, we are levy imminent somewhere in here. So key insights and recommendations, we know that revenue is growing slowly, but expenditures are growing much faster. We're deficit spending by fiscal year 27. We need to develop some levy options, whatever those might be, and when they might be. Our board policy requires it. When we hit less than 90 days, that triggers those conversations and that type of planning. Additional dollars for significant building improvements will likely be required in the relative near term. My personal opinion, being the new guy, and being your neighbor, I was your neighbor for a long time, and then I went to Akron, and here, these problems have existed for a long time. And I know there's been efforts, and much has been done, but that's a albatross around the neck of the finances right now, is the fact that we have some buildings that are very much in need of help. And the administration and board continues to demonstrate prudent fiscal stewardship. 10 years, maybe 11 years without asking for new money. That's hats off to the board, hats off to the administration. That doesn't happen by being fiscally irresponsible. That only happens because you're running a tight ship. There's always a lot of talk about our PI money. So what this forecast assumes is that you heard about the COPS and the TANs, you heard about that. The obligation is included. So my understanding is that the $825,000 that you'll see in this is both the COPS and the TANs combined, payments combined. If that's not the case, that's not what I predicated this on. Buses are, so we cut back on some bus purchases. We went back to the 4 in fiscal year 27. We are undercoating those buses. I have no doubt that that will help and extend the life of our buses, but as we get more data, if we can cut back bus purchases moving forward, then that's what we'll do. So, but the 5-year forecast does not project that. It projects status quo, 4. And perishables, we have to really watch this, is perishable items, meaning less than 5-year lifespan, are not in the 5-year forecast. So you can't use PI money for a workbook, for example. So we have to watch and make sure that we're compliant with what those funds are able to be expended for. And so you can see the PI collections. Now you might say, well, why does it say a number higher than $2.7 million? Because we're investing this money. Now, again, that could fluctuate. That could inflate this or underinflate this. But that's what we have seen historically. You can see our expenditures across the bottom. So those are everything that we know is coming up. What it doesn't include would be an emergency situation that nobody foresaw. And then across the bottom you can see our ending cash balances. So in other words, after we pay our debts and pay for what we know we take out of the PI fund, that's our emergency cash on the bottom. Okay, so if we had an emergency that exceeded that, it would have to come from the general fund. Questions? Oh no, I'm scared. Go ahead.
I only have two.
Okay.
Because you're lucky, you only have two.
That's great.
Plan of correction comes into play in what year, and what's it based on, 601 or 702? Is it based on our cash balance or our deficit spending line?
It's based on our cash reserves, that we must maintain at least 3 months of cash reserves. So that kicks in 27 would be the first time it fully kicks in.
So we'd have to, our plan of correction, like, we'd have to answer to the state when?
Oh, when do we have to, oh, okay, so now you're talking state
Yeah,
takeover.
yeah. Like-
Well, the first, you can go into fiscal caution when our deficit spending exceeds 8% of our total revenue.
But don't, we have to answer them, though, we have to give them a plan.
It-
like, so
we-
many
we
years
don't
in
yet,
advance
but-
If we show something so
Yeah,
many years.
yeah, probably, as we're forecasted right here, we have to, in fiscal watch, or excuse me, fiscal caution, we don't have to do anything. They just say, hey, watch yourself. And then the next year, we would fall into fiscal watch, because we're gonna be, that's 15%, so we'll fall into that. At that point, we have to send them a financial recovery plan.
Correct. And
So that would
what is
include
that based
cuts.
on? Is that based on the excess of revenues, or is that based on our deficit spend, or is it based on our cash balance?
It's based on cash balance.
Okay, so it's based on that bottom line?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And then then after fiscal watch becomes a fiscal emergency, and then if that were ever to happen, the Board of Education is basically sidelined, the administration's basically sidelined, and you report to a commission.
Okay, and then.
So of course, we're not gonna let that happen.
Right. The cash balance of 90 days, I know we've had this conversation quite briefly about including the expenditures in the joint financing, because those are high school staff salaries.
Mhm.
And that even if you put the revenue in and take the expenses out, that's a wash, I get that.
Yeah,
But that affects your 90 days, because now you're looking at 90 days of a bigger number of expenditures, because the 90-day cash balance is what's 90 days of actual expenditures for this district, and if we don't have the
All the teacher
joint
salaries.
financing district, we still have to include the teacher's salaries, so I just want to put that out there that we might want to, that's the only
Yeah.
reason I'm saying, like,
no,
I just think that's
I
a-
hear you, I hear you. I
Right,
mean,
like-
let's
I mean, we could
call
table that.
some of our friends and see what everybody's doing. I mean, this is pretty unique. I've never been in a district that had it.
Right.
You know,
and
but-
again, I just want to make sure that when we're talking about what's our actual 100 or 90,
Yeah, and we're talking $1 million. It's not inconsequential, but
it's enough.
it's
right?
enough. It's
And
enough.
I think if we did that, it actually throws us into that situation a year earlier than if we don't. So I'm just trying to,
Understand? We can model it both
Yeah.
ways.
that'd be
Okay,
great.
so the TIF agreement that we have, which I don't have in front of me right now,
Mhm.
but there was a schedule of payments over many years. Is that factored in at all? Well, not in the 5-year forecast,
No,
because it
not
doesn't
right now.
kick in. But
No, it's not.
eventually, those monies that we will get will feed into the general fund.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, so we have, again, no credit of mine at all, but the administration, Dr. Rutino and Scott and others have made a really wise decision, an incredibly wise decision to move out of the health consortium. And that went from what probably would have been somewhere near 22% increase to now we're being told that it's somewhere at 9%. I forecasted 11%. So there could even be a little bit of bump up from that if that holds true. I want to wait and see a little bit. So we have to do the 5-year forecast again in February, So we'll have a whole lot better picture of kind of where we're at than we do right now. Hopefully, we'll have the decision made on COPS TANs and all of that in the books. We've got these building projects moving. We know what our renewal rates are going to be, and we know what our true. We've run a couple of payrolls, but we need to run a couple more to feel really good about making sure our forecast reflects what's actual.
I appreciate the kind words, but all I did was form the committee. Mr. Keeney and Bill Robertson in the community were the people who did all the work.
Yeah, they did it. Everyone did a good job. Hats off. And we're working with a company called DCW right now, which I worked with in a previous district. I feel pretty good about where they're leading us. And again, even hats off to the union leadership. They've been right there working right along with Dr. Rutino. I'm kind of jumping in here at this point, but it's a really good culture here, folks. It really is a really good culture in a great school district. And I say that, I've been around a little bit. I think I can say that with some authority, that some accuracy. I'm impressed. So, anything else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that. Public comment. Anyone wishing to address the Board of Education will be recognized by the board president. Speakers are requested to speak from the podium, identify themselves and their topic. Comments are limited to 3 minutes.
Hi, thank you. Joe Andino, Riverside parent, 3 kids. I just wanted to get through a couple facts here. The properties at Harvard, Yale, Oxford, the analogy that was used earlier, those buildings cannot in fact be touched ever because they are a part of the National Registry of Historical Places. So that's kind of a bizarre comparison. Buckeye is a lovely school to some degree, but historical no, hysterical quite yes. So I just wanted to point that out. Plus, those campuses have added dozens and dozens of buildings over the couple hundred years that they've been there. If we want to have bizarre analogies, let's maybe throw in St. Peter's Basilica, which is 400 years old. And I doubt anyone's asking for them to tear that building down. Buckeye cannot be compared to any of those. That's the first thing I wanted to mention. Second, Ms. Kroniski and Ms. Brewster, you two are going to be on the board for another 2 years, right? So if you're worried about the board changing, Ms. Brewster, in a few months, really not a few, it's 3, you two be on the panel. You're going to be here for another 2 years. So yes, the other 3 seats are up. I work in a Fortune 100 company, and I'm pretty familiar with a lot of them. Pretty much all Fortune 100, even Fortune 500 companies have annual or biannual surveys every single year for their employees. And Mr. Keeney, they are always done anonymously. They don't give the employees an opportunity. Why? Because when an employee has to choose that they're being anonymous, sometimes they're considered doing it in a cowardly way. So they just make it anonymous for everybody. But when those surveys are gathered, great leaders then give the opportunity for their employees to meet and gather with them. So yes, trying to find out who it was, well, do you know who these people are? Of course you don't. Don't ask silly questions. You know that. You know that it was done anonymously. But why not open it up to the faculty and say, we have an open door policy. Come and join us and come and sit down. It doesn't have to be anyone who took the survey. It doesn't have to be anyone who's put anything anonymous. It doesn't even have to be anyone who's angry. Anyone's welcome to come and sit down and give us our feedback. And yes, Mr. Official, you as a school board member might not be responsible for the teachers. That might fall on the superintendent. But you are in fact responsible to the teachers. You're also responsible to the community. You two were very quick to go and meet with the people behind Buckeye around fencing and trees, and you, Mr. Official, said yourself, well, it's really important for us to hear from them, hear their input. You said this about 3 minutes after the long debate around sitting and talking to teachers. I get the impression, and I believe so does the majority of this room, that you are scared of the feedback of the teachers. You are scared of it. Why not just say, let's have it? Why not? What is the worry? I know what the worry is. I only have 18 seconds. I would like to know where LLB fits into the triangle of that deficit spending. I'm not suggesting you get a secretary out of it, but I'm sure the money could be better spent. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Monthly financial reports and check payment register report, resolution to approve the monthly, well, this is finance and audit.
Finance and audit.
Go ahead.
Okay,
I don't want to take your finance and audit.
that's okay. I make a motion to approve items listed A through N on the finance audit consent agenda as recommended by the treasurer. Could I get a second, please?
Second.
Any discussion?
I think I have two questions. We have some items that are on the then and now certificates that we're also approving in item H, if I'm not mistaken. Is that, am I reading that correctly?
H.
Like, we are approving items for consultants that we're also putting in here, I think, GeoSci in the amount of $83,556. I think that's a couple of these things added together. Is there a reason why they're in both places?
I can answer that one real quick. We're approving the purchase order, but it's also after the fact of all, like the invoices already come through.
Okay.
So normally we would have that PO in place, and given it's over 15, we would approve it in the first part, but since it's after the fact, that's where the then and now comes into play.
All right, wait, I'm just not used to seeing it in two places. And the second question I have is I believe this is on the finance and audit section. We have an interdistrict for Columbus?
We do. We have a student who attends us, who attends Court Place.
For here?
Yes.
Okay. I just thought that was interesting, that's all. I don't have anything else.
No further discussion then, please take the roll.
Mr. Fischel,
Aye.
Mr. Keeney,
Aye.
Miss Grassi, I'm sorry, I don't know why I want to say that wrong. Grassi.
It doesn't, I'll answer to whatever. Aye.
Miss Brewster,
Aye.
Miss Krasinski.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Consent agenda personnel.
Make a motion to approve items A through I listed on the personal consent agenda as recommended by the superintendent. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please take the roll.
Miss Brewster,
Aye.
Mr. Fischel,
Aye.
Miss Krasinski,
Aye.
Mr. Keeney,
Aye.
Miss Grassi.
Aye.
First modification, treasurer, chief fiscal officer contract. Resolution to make an adjustment to the July 15, 2025 employment agreement of Steve Thompson, EDD. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Can you please call the roll?
Miss Brewster,
Aye.
Miss Krasinski,
Aye.
Mr. Fischel,
Aye.
Mr. Keeney,
Aye.
Miss Grassi.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Consent agenda curriculum and programming.
Okay, I need a motion to approve, or I'm making a motion to approve item A listed on the curriculum and programming consent agenda as recommended by the superintendent. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? All right, Dr. Thompson, can you please call the roll?
Miss Krasinski,
Aye.
Mr. Fischel,
Aye.
Miss Brewster,
Aye.
Ms. Grassi,
Aye.
Mr. Keeney.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Consent agenda, buildings and grounds. Motion to approve the items listed on the buildings and grounds operations consent agenda as recommended by the superintendent. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any
Did-
discussion?
Did we just decide to purchase it? I know we had a couple of options in the Friday packet.
We did. We just decided to purchase it and do the advertising ourselves.
Can you call the roll, please?
Just to comment on that too, no matter what, we're responsible for the installation price, which is $11,000. So if we would have went with the option of them doing the advertising first, that would have only covered 10 grand of that.
Okay.
So we'll take care of that on our.
And that's all coming out of PI fund? Yes?
Yes.
Can you take the roll?
Ms. Grassi,
Aye.
Ms. Brewster,
Aye.
Mr. Fischel,
Aye.
Ms. Krasinski,
Aye.
Mr. Keeney.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Policy agenda.
It's just the first read of the policy.
Thank you. Board of Education business, additional days for Briscoe Consulting Group. Resolution authorizing and approving an additional 45 days for Briscoe Consulting Group to complete the comprehensive analysis of operational revenues and financial management mechanisms described in the May 27, 2025 proposal. And 2, the completion of additional work that is outside the scope of the May 27, 2025 proposal, i.e. a forensic review of expenditures involving Fund 003, with the cost of this additional work not to exceed $6,500, subject to the same terms and conditions set forth in the May 27, 2025 proposal from Briscoe Consulting Group. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Can I ask, have we seen the information from the first portion of their work?
No, we haven't, because what happened was, upon requesting the materials needed to do the work, they were delayed 45 days or longer, and with multiple requests, did not receive them, so he couldn't do the work.
So if he couldn't do, so I'm going to question that. If he couldn't do the work, what are we paying additional money for if he hasn't done the work from the first
So,
portion of the contract?
thank you for that. So I clarified that he couldn't complete the work because he didn't have the information in time. So some of the work was done, and in doing some of the work, he's requesting a little bit more of a forensic review of the Fund 003.
Do we have a report on what he's done so far? I mean, we haven't seen anything as board.
Now, again, he was not given materials after multiple requests, failed to get those materials, so he wasn't able to do all of his work. So I'm not so sure he was going to give a partial report on partial work. So I'm suggesting, in my opinion, that we go ahead and continue with this audit so that we can have clean books transferring over to our new treasurer.
So what has he done so far? Do we have a status report, Dr. Thompson, on anything that Briscoe Consulting has done to the tune of, I think it was $9,500, that we have to provide him with additional resources to finish what? I'm not sure what he's done. We haven't seen a report on what he's done with the dollars we've already spent. Does anybody have any documentation from Briscoe Consulting on what has been completed for our $9,500? Okay, then. I would like to get a better understanding of what it is that is being done under the scope of this contract. It is my understanding that if we ask our accounting and finance staff to pull data from a fund, it's a simple download of Excel data, basically, CSV file. You can sort it, you can do all kinds of stuff with it yourself. I'm not exactly sure what is taking them $9,500 plus another $6,500 worth of work to do what? It's an Excel spreadsheet. If you're good with Excel, you could do that in 5 minutes. What's being reviewed to that amount of time and to that extent? I mean, is it a fishing expedition? I'm trying to figure out what are we asking him to look for? We didn't clarify that. We've never gotten an answer for that when we actually voted to approve that contract, which is why I voted no, because I didn't know what it was for. What is it for? What are we looking for? What is he looking for in those funds? Anyone? Dr. Thompson, are you aware, like, have you talked to this individual at all?
We've filled records requests, but that's the extent of which my contact's been thus far.
So we don't have any documentation yet on what has been, we don't have any invoices that so much work has been completed to the terms of $9,500. I mean, we gave the person a retainer, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. That's correct.
I don't think I have anything else to add to that.
Anything else? Can you take the roll?
Ms. Brewster,
Aye.
Ms. Krenensky,
Nay.
Mr. Fischel,
Aye.
Mr. Keeney,
Aye.
Ms. Grassi.
Nay.
Motion carries 3-2.
Board of Education, nope, COPS lease purchase resolution. Resolution authorizing installment payment or lease purchase financing in the form of one or more series of installment payment obligations, lease purchase obligations, or certificates of participation issued as tax-exempt obligations, providing for the acquisition, construction, equipping, and improving of real and/or personal property for school district purposes, including one or more installment payment agreements, ground leases, lease purchase agreements, and/or trust indentures, and matters related thereto. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Fischel,
Aye.
Ms. Krenensky,
Nay.
Mr. Keeney,
Aye.
Ms. Grassi,
Nay.
Ms. Brewster.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-2.
Board of Education update. Board of Education will provide additional updates and/or discussion. Is there anything? Okay, the next meeting announcement. Finance and Personnel, October 16th, 8 a.m. Curriculum and Programming, October 20th at 7 a.m. Board of Education meeting, October 23rd, 6 p.m. And we have a work session on October 16th at 5:30.
And we have a policy meeting.
I
There's a
think-
policy meeting October 2nd that did not get on this.
Oh, is that still a policy meeting?
Yeah, policy meeting is October 2nd at 7:30. And then the work session is 16th
And that was at 5:30.
at 5:30.
Okay, good. We will now adjourn to executive session. Be it resolved that the Riverside Local School District Board of Education hereby adjourns to executive session at 9:12 p.m. to discuss personnel matters relating to the employment of public officials and discipline, and discuss matters of pending or imminent litigation. And the Riverside Local School District Board of Education hereby designates all matters discussed in this executive session as strictly confidential, and finds that this designation is warranted because of the status of this matter and the need to preserve confidentiality to properly conduct the business of this Board of Education. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Can you call the roll, please?
Ms. Brewster,
Aye.
Ms. Grassi,
Aye.
Mr. Fischel,
Aye.
Mr. Keeney,
Aye.
Ms. Krasinski?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you for that.
Sitting